my worst view there.
Good evening, this is the April 16th meeting of the Finance Committee. We'll call the meeting to order at 6:33. No public comment. All right. So the purpose of tonight's meeting is to review and to recommend or not recommend budgets and warrant articles. So we will go, actually the first item of business is the request for transfer from the reserve fund for the health department. We discussed this last meeting. The health department is requesting $1,485. This is to cover pre-exposure rabies vaccinations for the animal inspector. This is a safety issue. She is responsible for quarantines of animals with wounds of unknown origin. This is from the Board of Health. The previous inspectors all received their shots through other means or through other employers, basically. So this is the first time we've had to pay for this in at least 4 years, as long as I've been here.
At least I can remember, yes.
Yeah, so this is the first time it's ever come up. So it's $1,500. I know we had discussed this last week. We posed the questions to the Board of Health Director and one of the Board of Health members that were here, so I don't know if we have others. I'll assume not.
No.
This will be coming from the reserve fund. I think there was another issue. Was it close to being over on their Sharps containers as well, so they were going to take some from their expense, but they're at a point where they can't.
Yeah,
so we had discussion on this?
We're in discussion now.
Because I can tell you, I'm not too happy that we can't get some sort of guarantee that the employee doesn't leave in 6 months, 3 months, 4 months. I mean, it's an expense that wasn't there. Additionally,
but didn't we talk about that? And they said we couldn't do it because when you do it for one department, you have to do it for all.
so then we denied,
And
so we put it back in place.
Well, I guess we do. Like, we buy uniforms and shoes and things like, there's no guarantee that
This is
people stay.
So the
And
same
we're not
thing.
asking them to give us the money back.
At work, if you go better yourself, which again, this shop will carry to her next job, you have to sign a thing, college, whatnot, that you'll be there. I mean, that's what I'm saying, is we don't have it budgeted, we don't have the money. The other thing I didn't like, and I'm being frank, is Jerry said, or the director said that there was money held aside in case of this, but then she overran in another area, so there's still $600 there, $700 there, by my math, so why don't they?
No, that money was being used.
There was 1,100 in there, and she said she ran over by 500 on something else, so there's still 600 in there, so why isn't she bellying up to 600?
From my understanding, I thought they were. And this is the remainder.
So it's $1,500 for the shots, and then
It's 11, they're asking for 1180.
So she is putting that money in there?
Yeah, I thought for sure that this is what they're asking for, what was the remainder after their money was totally
I didn't
wiped
get that
out.
impression. I thought they were asking us to pay.
Total charges are $1,485. No, they're asking for
they're requesting
$1,485.
So she's not even using the money, she said she earmarked there.
Because
So-
she said she needed it for just the Sharps container.
But there was 1,100 in there, and we were told the Sharps was another 500, so by my math, there's another 600 there. Wasn't budgeted, we never had it, and if we can't do it because of a policy, why don't we bring a policy forward? I mean, above and beyond. I mean, this is a certification she takes with her if she leaves.
Just a thought, does anybody find out if her health insurance will pay for it?
Yes, she did.
said no.
They said
They
it
won't.
was
Said no.
declined.
Yeah.
She's part-time, I think we give her, what, $3,000 or something like that?
3,000, yeah, I think it's
For the
budget,
year.
yeah.
Well, I understand.
So this is 50%, the cost to her is 50% of what we pay her.
And I'm not expecting to pay it. All I'm saying is we should get something for our $1,500, which is a guarantee she'll be here for 3 months, 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, a year, 2 weeks.
Again, if there's no townwide policy, we can't suggest that we implement it on one. It would have to be
It's a
something
good thought,
that
but I
select
don't
board
think
and
we can't
CPB
be-
would have
So then
to-
why don't we do it?
It's
How do
definitely
we get it-
something that we can do moving forward, I
How do
think.
we get it on a board to move forward?
But
You
it
can
ha-
recommend it to the select board or the governing body. I mean, we don't, this committee doesn't make the change. We can make the
Right.
recommendation to a
Right.
committee, but we don't
Bylaws is made
institute
up.
that.
My feeling is it's something that she needs in line of her job. I make a motion, we approve.
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Majority.
I would like to bring up this is a good point that Dan makes, and I firmly believe that, so in other words, yeah, I think there should be a policy. If a treasurer collector gets additional training, that then qualifies them to get, you know, a higher position. I mean, there's constant betterments going on, I think, in
Absolutely.
many
And we need
positions.
commitments
that
for our
There should be
investments.
some sort of commitment. that
Not
they're
forever,
working.
it's not jail, you can walk away and pay 50% of it after a year, 25% of
right.
it, there's always buyouts on it, but it's...
I think
it's-
that's reasonable, and I
Yeah.
think as municipal employees, you know, look to be paid, you know, based on, you know, what I would seem to be comparable wages out in the corporate world, then these types of policies should also apply as
Yeah.
far as paying back if you leave before.
It's almost like the police department, when we send them to the academy,
training, yeah.
they come back, we can't get anything for them to say they're going to stay for X years.
Yeah.
No
You can
commitment.
negotiate it.
I would even think on
The
highway, they
union,
get
we
trained
tried.
on different certifications
I mean,
or
you can,
specialties,
but will
and
they-
then.
Yeah, exactly, and that's a point they don't want to give into, the union,
Right.
but on an individual, I mean, it's not unreasonable for things. Now, if we demand that they have this, or...
Well, that part of an employment agreement, it would be the place I would think to put it.
And especially, I mean, if you look at this, just, you know, top-down, big picture, what's budgeted for that wage, that's half of that wage.
Exactly.
So it kind
Yeah.
of doesn't,
I understand. The
Yeah.
other issue I had is how does the department not know this?
Is this person
How does the
just the
department not
animal
know what?
control officer?
Yes.
$1,500.
So it
is
used
still
to
at
be
the end of the
one
year.
person doing 2 jobs before, but
Well,
I don't remember.
That has
also
the budget.
health.
Well,
Right,
I
so
just,
it's-
She's also a health agent.
No,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
so was Ron, but Ron was covered. He
Right.
received the shots.
But they're saying,
Military and then probably,
Right.
either military or, because he worked in other areas doing the
So what
same
did this
thing.
person do up until now? Just didn't have it?
I
she
think it
didn't,
just expired.
hers
I
expired?
think so. It may
Not that
have.
this is my forte either, but you can also receive treatment once you've been, if you have received a bite of unknown origin, and it does work and it's effective. So what a person chooses to do, whether they want to be proactive or reactive on fighting a disease, that's their
but I-
personal decision.
I think the cost of the treatment far exceeds the prevention.
I was, yeah.
I think we'd have to.
I was saying we'd have to pay.
And that's a very good
Exactly.
point.
I mean,
Yes.
Yeah.
that's all, we
It
spend
hurts.
money, we need to get something
hurts,
back.
Babies and all that. Oh, yeah, needles, and, oh, yeah, you don't want to go there.
We spend money, we just gotta get something back.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta be fiscally responsible.
I supposed to sign in?
It almost seems like certain positions
I think here
that's
it
built
says,
into the
what is
job
this one?
description. If you, once you
Yeah.
get that,
I
if you
guess
stay X
if you
time,
want to make
no
any
cost if you
comments, I
stay.
think.
Yes.
So you guys are approving this
Yeah,
as
there's
well, you're not
nothing-
making her use her
Just sell it to the
$600, you
HQB and ask
let her
them
keep
about
that?
that. Is it
Just
just
voted.
position?
That's fine.
Yeah. Could we ask you, Francine, through PPPB, could you bring that up maybe at your next meeting? If it's something that.
I mean, that's a, yeah, I could.
I don't know what other positions, John thought there might be other.
There's got to be a health agent, obviously. Building commission, I don't know if they have to have, I mean, remember you were saying,
I mean, he,
going to some vital places.
we paid for
Certifications, yeah.
those, I'm sure, for certification, testing,
So
for
that's
the
the same thing.
books. But the
Yes.
books are town property, but the testing, yeah.
There might be
Classes
no,
and things.
stomach for adding that in, I don't know.
Whatever, just pointing it out. That's why I didn't
That's
say
what
a
I'm
word.
asking.
And then on top of that, I think we made this there and should have made constantly 600 come out of her budget. Fiscal responsibility is fiscal responsibility.
I hear you. So
Okay.
then that would have to apply consistently going forward to everyone, except in these negotiated contracts. So we'd say something like whatever investment would be prorated.
Right, termination occurs within X period of time from,
And that's just not, that's their own termination, they walk away.
Yeah,
That's it.
yeah.
of course,
Not-
right,
yes.
right.
If there's a reduction in workforce or
Voluntary.
they voluntarily leave, I mean,
Then we pay for that.
Right.
and absolutely, there's,
All right,
Wait, you got the colored one.
I do. So we'll move on to budget, the budgets, and then we will attack the warrants following. Brought this for you.
Yeah, I hope the terminology doesn't tell us what's going to happen. Attack the warrants.
is this my own?
That's your own personal copy.
Wow. Thank you, sir.
And you're welcome. I know you had an issue seeing the other
I feel
ones.
slighted. I'm just kidding.
It's squeaky wheel.
I play that role very well.
All right, so the first budget we have is the non-override balanced budget for recommendation.
What is this refresh?
So we have gone through and gone through and gone through these budgets. These have not changed since last week, just the same as they were before. I don't know if there's comments, questions, concerns. You know, we have asked a lot of questions. The town has worked very hard, the finance team, but most specifically Vicky and Ed, and they've put a lot of time into scrutinizing and making sure everything is captured and across the board balanced. You know, I'm fine with discussing items if they come up, but I would like to kind of act on the budget as a whole tonight. It's my personal.
So how do you want to approach it? Like, do you just want to go section by section, or do you want to highlight areas that they have issue with, or?
We can look at section by section. I mean, if there's no issues, no specific issues, for instance, I would say vote on the whole.
I have issues.
Okay.
In
So
my
then,
mind,
this is the non-override budget?
yes.
Okay.
In my mind, on the non-override budget, no increases would mean no increases, so I'm going to look at the fire chief's salary. The 6346 was not in the FY18 budget. It was approved at the special town meeting utilizing free cash with no promise of that going forward. The same would apply to the building inspector salary of $6,800.
Okay.
I feel that in the face of what the town is being dealt with as far as cuts, for that to be in the non-override budget is somewhat of a slap in the face to the rest of the employees.
Now, which ones were those again?
Fire chief
Fire
salary
chief.
and building inspector salary.
Okay.
So what would be the
I would
proposed
think that the
change?
non-override budget should be the same as the FY18 approved town meeting budget in those two scenarios, with the excess being put back, whoever's taking cuts, Norris School, Highway Department, pick one.
Yeah.
You got to remember, though, you got some legal contracts that have been signed, and we can't break the contract.
So they were signed
Approved at town
before,
meeting.
it was a one-time expense, and we talked about that too at the town meeting, John.
But once it
Mike
got
Knight.
approved, we went and signed the contract. So there's a legal binding contract. You can't get out of it,
But why would you do that, though?
because that's how the contracts operate.
But you didn't represent that to the town that way.
Contracts are based
No.
on not
No,
a
you didn't.
special free cash
Remember,
transfer.
Remember, you
No,
got
I-
money also for being the emergency management director, EMD.
We got up and we talked about it being reoccurring and not budgeted, and you guys said, we'll deal with it.
Right, and they
And so you- and then-
voted on it.
No, it was not represented as reoccurring at the town meeting.
I'm going to disagree. We have to run the film, as they say, but
It was not.
And
So that,
the EMS was
Wow.
not, we thought it was emergency management, but it wasn't. It was emergency medical services. Not because
the
Charlie-
director,
Charlie
Charlie's
is-
EMD, he's EMS
so actually lied to the
director.
town, John.
No, I'm just getting the
No.
wrong. You mean EMD versus EMS?
No, I'm saying about it was not
The
represented
source
as a
of funding
reoccurring.
was always, and if you even read the warrant article, a transfer of free cash for the remainder of the year. It was
That's it.
never articulated to the voters that it would be ongoing in perpetuity.
Well,
It's
again,
absolutely pulling the wool over the voters' eyes.
But I hear what he's saying.
we signed a legal contract
Which is the problem.
based on the town.
You're
yeah.
right, too.
And how long is the contract for?
There's usually for
I
2 or
want to
3
say
years.
2 or 3 years, yeah.
So we represented it's a $5,000 increase when the reality is there's probably based increases every year, right?
It wasn't 5,000.
Yep, it was
It was more than
$5,000.
that.
Oh, it was more.
Yeah,
But then-
more
And
than
then what does John have, what does the fire chief have worked into his pay raise automatic every year? How much is that?
Well, he should get nothing except what's in there now. He gets the same raise as the other town employees get.
So if they
it's
get
2%, he gets 2%. If it's nothing, they get nothing. If it gets cut 2%, he gets cut 2%.
I question the legality of that being in a contract that's enforceable. How can that be when that's not what the townspeople voted for?
We didn't vote for 20
Well,
grand
again,
that
I'm
day.
disagreeing with what you're saying, so you'd have to run it by, you know.
But we didn't vote for 20 grand. You guys didn't represent it that way to this town.
Well, again, what we represented at that meeting, I'm not visualizing it, but we have a legal contract in order to break
Mike, do
it.
you have any comments?
Checked out getting through the budget period.
No, I'm just thinking, I mean, taking each one individually,
No, we're talking about that. You were there.
The fire chief.
How was it represented as a perpetual to the town?
I think,
verbatim, I'm not gonna tell you what it was or wasn't. Do I know that it was going to be a perpetual increase? Yes.
but I think,
what was
I think
exactly
we
said, I don't
represented
remember.
it as this would be something that we have to, that would also follow into next year's budget.
Right.
That was the caution that we gave
Right.
when you made your comments.
Yeah.
Here's the
Just amazing.
the warrant from the January meeting. So, let me
Just
see.
so deceptive.
It is. Just not right.
Interesting call,
It's why we're where we are in this town.
Well, again, Dan, you're saying that your memory is 100% accurate. I mean, Mike and I don't remember the exact
You
details.
can't
so I
spend the
don't know.
money without knowing where it's coming from. You knew at that point we had a deficit.
Yeah.
And you went ahead and pushed forward with that.
Exactly.
And you voted for it.
signed a
That's wrong.
contract.
That's wrong. And then signed a contract. That is
Yeah.
wrong.
But the one thing is,
It's wrong. There's no way, Justin.
in defense of the process, it was brought up. It was brought up that this is reoccurring.
People
with the
believe in our
revenue.
select board, and it was misrepresented. They knew there was a deficit. We didn't even talk about the deficit. We didn't talk about the ability to use free cash towards our deficit.
We did, because remember,
No, we didn't.
you went up there and said, it's free cash, it's gonna reoccur, this is a one-time free cash. The town voted in
I
the
don't
majority to
think
go
they
ahead with it.
understood that.
They didn't.
That's-
Well, wait a minute, you
But we
guys
do
went
our-
up there and explained it, and other people went up there and explained it, so I think there was a lot of process going on.
I don't even know how we got here, quite frankly. John, you came to this board and said, before we vote on it as a select board, let's go to finance and see where the money's coming from. You left the meeting when we had that discussion, knowing full well we did not have the
Have the
money
money.
for it. So then we
You
get it
did
on
the
a warrant.
last town meeting?
No, here,
No,
in
when
one of
you
our
attended
meetings.
our-
We
our-
brought this
last
up.
town meeting.
Yes, it was
Yeah.
before the town meeting.
And we went to town meeting and we explained it, gave both sides to it.
But you didn't have the money. It was a deficit. How could you support that as a select board?
We
Here's
said we
what-
would work
here's
it
what
out
the-
in the
Here's
budget.
what the article said, to see if the town will vote to transfer 6346 from ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation to the fire chief's salary account to cover negotiated salary for the fire chief service as EMS director,
EMS, okay.
or take any other action relative thereto. So he was given new responsibilities.
Right. And Mike met with the select board, we talked about the new
So
responsibilities
that was it. It doesn't say anything for the rest of this year.
But where did the money come from?
from the ambulance.
So it didn't come
Ambulance
from
receipts.
free cash, it came from the ambulance receipts. But moving forward.
It's now coming out of our.
It's now
wallet.
coming out of the budget.
Yes, that's
Well,
exactly.
You gotta remember, we take from
That's
the
exactly
ambulance
it.
receipts to fund as much
It
as we
didn't say
can.
anything about
We transfer
this year,
over
next year.
100,000.
What about for the building
Right.
inspector? What's that?
But it's-
How's that one worded?
But it's for a salary, right? I mean,
Yes.
if you consider
He's not going to take it back.
classifications of employment, taking money and putting it into a salary, you don't take money from a salary the next year unless you're doing a sort of across-the-board cut. You don't reduce salaries.
That's why it was irresponsible to put a warrant
Of
forward.
course it was, and we're
But
losing
we
six
just-
and a
Well, we
half
knew we had a
teachers.
deficit.
But which one is that one?
We're losing
This
six
is
and a
the
half
building
teachers in a
building.
non-override
Okay.
budget, but we've got an increase to a building inspector when growth is down.
Okay.
But I guess we have to move on.
We gave him.
I don't,
him-
my thing is, on a personal perspective, I don't want to argue against what town meeting voted. I don't necessarily agree with the process or how we got here, but town meeting did vote for it.
yeah.
Not
The-
under
the-
all the premise of what it was in
The
front of
building,
us.
the
just as it was
building
written.
commissioner got an increase in hours for which we paid him, not an increase in
He
salary.
was working X
We
amount of
we gave
hours.
him
There
more
may be
hours,
some
which gave him more money,
wiggle there, I
which,
don't know.
Well, we gave him more money for the hours.
correct.
Right.
For the hours.
Yeah,
But we gave him 4 more hours, is that what it was?
Per week.
Yeah.
And just to talk, it's not 6.5
No,
days.
that's what I'm saying,
Paramedical
so
and clerical in there too, so it's not 6.5
that's a little
days.
bit.
It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't.
It
It's
doesn't
not
make sense
represented
to
properly.
inflate one section of the budget and have drastic cuts elsewhere.
It's not represented properly. There's no way we should spend any
Well,
more money 6 months
here's
ago.
the
Any of
kind of
it.
the rub. It was transferred from the town administrator's salary account because we had a temp in there.
Right.
So.
Right, so
the
there was some
building
that was left
commissioner's
over.
salary account, so that was where it came from and where it went.
So, we have these two. I don't want to entertain a motion until we know the breadth of any other issues with
Okay,
line
I think we
items.
should do the whole thing and then go back for the ones that you have
And
concerns.
we can discuss and vote. I want to make sure everything is captured and circled, so if we do vote on something, we know what it's being voted on. So, are there other non-override balanced budget line items?
Now, where is the water department? You saw that email?
Then it's the enterprise one, so that's listed in the warrant itself, it's not in this.
It's
Yeah,
not in
yeah.
here.
So that'll be a warrant discussion,
Okay,
or article discussion.
that's right, because I knew I saw it last week. That's not here.
Is the non-override balanced?
Yes. They made the final changes last week, last 2 weeks. They took 50, 100, 1,000 from departments and moved it around to balance, reduce this, reduce that.
And you have no issues with it?
With the budget as a whole? I don't on the principle that we've acted on in the past is you bring something before town meeting, whether it's a select board sponsored article, a finance committee article, what happened with the budget a year ago, something was brought forward and voted in. The voters were apprised of the situation, it was voted in. I feel the same way about the budget being voted in a year ago as I do these two here. They were voted in at town meeting. They, in my eyes, they stand, and, you know, in that same budget we voted in, there was an increase. There were increases to certain employees and not all employees as well, right? So one could argue that all those increases should be stripped away if we're in such a dire financial time, right? If we gave 5, I'm not here to tear apart the town and all the employees though, right? I mean, it is people's livelihood. They have those, they've operated with those salaries, they depend on those, so I'm not here to
No, I agree.
do that. But I feel the same way.
Transparency needs to be out there. I think the consequences in the picture needs to be painted, and I don't think that was done or is done on a regular basis financially. There is no forethought. It's spend today and hope we get more tomorrow.
I would say I think we provided a lot of that information, and it is up to the public body to entertain it and make their own
And
decision.
they voted,
They voted for it.
we did recommend most of those increases.
Recommended none of them.
And they voted everyone in. So, yeah, that supersedes, certainly we made our recommendations known. The other thing, though, that's in the non-override budget that people need to be aware of, I don't remember how many, but all administrative assistants were cut a day.
I think there's only one, though, one administrative assistant.
Well, in that category, but several people had their hours reduced who function in that assistant kind of category that you'll note on the non-override. So there are no one else in departments, none of the department managers or other employees had any reduction. They're not getting an increase, but there was no reduction except for the kind of admin level people.
Except for the fire department. That's just, second and third shift just gone in the non.
And highways taking cuts. They're
And highways
losing,
taking-
yeah, and the school.
But it's not an admin assistant, I think it's a
No.
staff
No,
member.
right,
No,
what I'm
that's
saying
staff.
here in town hall.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
yes.
Velda's
These people-
position.
Right, it's
cut.
all administrative assistants.
Yeah, but I think the highway assistant got cut and well as Velda. Right. Because the highway is being shared between highway and.
But those are only being cut if the override doesn't go.
Right.
Correct.
That's
The
the
assistant
budget.
accountant was
Yeah.
cut,
Because that's all over on that
the
side.
assistant accountant was cut.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So, I mean, you can go down the line, you can see where
Was it 5 hours?
the town clerk assistant was cut.
And I
mean,
think that's why I struggle so much with these salary increases when every single assistant is being cut in this budget scenario. It just seems crazy to me.
So if you look at, and this is my opinion when looking at the admin function, at the end of the day, if things were to get catastrophically worse in the town, the admins would be the first to lose their positions. The department heads would be forced to take on all those responsibilities. So,
And Ed's doing that now, the TA, because he.
exactly, that is an example with Velda leaving through attrition. He's taking on that role. If something were to happen, the admins would be the first to get cut before everyone took a cut across the board. The admins would realistically be reduced
That's it.
because you need to pay people to stay to try to keep some semblance of
Yeah.
government. If you reduce everyone to a point, everyone's going to leave. So
Now, Ed also volunteered a $3,000 cut
Yes.
from his salary.
Yes,
Because he's
and
going to
we
hire a
praised him
temp.
for that.
Right, yeah.
So just a couple general questions. We've got on here where we're going to be asking for increases in revolving funds and net new revolving funds.
I want to concentrate on the budget.
It ties. Where's the money coming from these? So obviously, if we set up a net new revolving fund in Conservation Commission, revenue's coming away from the town because that revenue would be poured back in. So we need to chew another $10,000 out of our budget because now they've got $10,000 to go spend where they want. And then the same with the 2,000 in here. So again, we're getting back into something I just had a little tirade on. We're looking at a budget that we're approving, right, for next year, and then we're gonna look at the warrants, which are gonna have effect on this budget. So why don't we go back and look at these warrants first and then find out things in here, where they're gonna come out on this budget? Because I need $10,000, I need $13,000 right now out of this budget if we're gonna bring forward these revolving funds.
Revolving funds are a one-time funding, and then they automatically take care of themselves.
Where's the money come from, John?
Where would the 10 grand
should come
have
from their
gone?
budget.
Where would the 10 grand?
They don't have a budget. They have no budget right now. So by
it's the
setting
money
them,
that they're earning.
which would have been going into our positive cash flow, which again, they're keeping aside, and that's a mistake. So again, where's the 13 grand? This budget's not balanced right now. And then let's start going through this and find out what in here is gonna affect next year's budget and it's not balanced again.
It's balanced in the sense that that revenue was deducted from the total revenue that we're expecting when we. balance
Where?
the
Show
budget.
me where the $10,000.
That's not, it's not going to be in a line item, it's
It should
on the
be,
expected revenue.
show me where the expected revenue is from the Conservation Commission last year. We must have that. How much did we get out of the Conservation Commission last year?
But when Ed and
I don't know if it's broken down to that level. in the-
So we don't know where 13,000 is coming from. We have to find 13,000, because if we can't find the revenues in our
We need
revenues.
to
coming
also
in-
trust in the accountant and the people who run the town to a certain degree.
But Mike,
We have
I
an
did at the
accountant
last town
and a
meeting,
town
and look what
administrator.
happened. We got increases.
We have an accountant and a town administrator who scrutinized every single item to balance this, to bring it
We
forward.
haven't looked at this yet. They're
So
reviewing.
you're telling me Vicky didn't put any effort into that?
No, what I'm
Or
telling
Ed
you is
didn't
where's
put
the
any effort
show
into it?
Well,
me
that's
where the
putting words
13.
in someone's mouth.
Mike,
Please,
show me where the 13,000 is coming
This
from.
is getting way.
Where's the
way off
where's the
track.
13,000 coming from?
There's
it's already
Where?
filtered in, when they looked at revenue projections, they filtered less revenue coming from, say, the Concom. So here, instead of
fees and
having
permits, I think,
$5
the line
million
is?
and $10,000, we have $5 million.
If I go back before this 10,000 was put in, I bet you the numbers are the same, and the 10,000 isn't there. I can look at budgets when this was a line
That's a
item.
question.
I'd like to take a 5-minute recess, if that's
Yeah.
okay?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah. That's a question for Vicki, and she could run down and show you.
That is the question.
But
We are resuming the April 16th Finance Committee meeting at 7:12.
Okay.
So we had the two budget lines in question. Are there other budget lines that are concerned
And the non-override.
in the non-override balanced budget.
I had two questions. One was for the winter roads wages. For the FY18 approved town meeting, it's at 138,210. Then for the non-override budget, it's 138,220. What's that $10 difference, or was that just
It's
a typo, maybe?
it allows you to deficit spend. So if you under budget your winter road wages and
Yeah.
you go over because of snowstorms, it allows you to deficit spend.
Right.
If you were to
okay.
put in another 50 grand there and something happens, we can't
overspend.
deficit spend.
Oh, okay, all right. I
You
just
gotta
thought.
reduce it every year.
I'm
right?
like,
It's a
Right.
precaution,
$1, I
yeah.
think it is.
Oh,
That's what it is, yeah.
I'm like, okay, it's a $10
an-
difference. I go, was that just a,
It's an
okay.
accounting measure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And my other one was the Board of Health expenses. If the override doesn't go through, there'll be a $500 decrease. The Board of Health gets nailed every single year. Why are we gonna hit them again? The last 3
I
years?
think that was the last little exercise that Vicki and Ed sat down to
Correct.
come up with that 34 that they needed to find to balance the budget, Sharon, and everyone got a little piece of the
Right.
hit there, building department, IT equipment, IT expense, town administrator salary,
It was voted at
street
the
light.
select board meeting.
Like, they were literally picking dollars and pennies to try to get that 34,000.
They're trying to shift it to another line, if I remember at the select board meeting, and somebody said Board of Health didn't get hit for anything. We should at least take $500 away.
Yeah, because they get hit every year.
Well,
I
all
don't
the
think so.
departments.
I know, not like other departments.
Yeah. Board of Health
They've got-
has
Well,
been pretty-
Well, not like other departments,
No,
because they
but they've
barely
gotten-
have anything.
No, they've gotten pretty much everything they've asked for the last several years.
Yeah,
Believe
but
it or
they,
not.
right, I know, and I get it, but they have to ask for more every year because we keep taking away from them.
No, we haven't been taken away for years.
No.
'Cause
No,
that was
they
one-
can-
Are you sure?
That was one of the
They
points that was brought up
consistently
at the select
request
board.
higher
Money
wage
every
or
year.
salary line.
Every
Right,
year.
that I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And additional money for expenses.
This was a token to say the Board of Health hasn't
Yeah.
contributed anything.
Right.
Remember when that was
Okay.
brought
Was
up?
All
like
right,
the-
then-
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
There are other departments who suffered terribly.
Right.
Oh, that I agree. But it was always the same.
Council on
blend.
Aging was cut $26,000 this year. So that's a lot.
It's sad.
Library, yep.
Other line items in the non-override? So,
I guess the thing that we should note, though, is in the non-override budget, our unemployment skyrockets.
correct.
I mean, those are just,
Yeah, that was on here,
there's things
wasn't it?
that just because you cut positions doesn't mean this stuff is gonna go away.
And how long, that's for 1 year?
26 weeks initially,
26
then you can apply
Right.
for
And
another
when
26.
people,
Is that the max?
when,
I believe
So
so.
that wouldn't carry forward into FY '20?
It should be a 1 year if
It should,
everybody
yeah.
applies. and
So
gets
we-
accepted.
unemployment-
If we have to do the cuts
Right.
this year, at least we gain that.
It would go
Okay.
for one, yeah, it could possibly go for one full.
and the other thing is the people who are having their hours reduced, can they go to unemployment and make up the difference?
Depends on the percentage.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know the factors, but if you were 30 hours and reduced to 20, you could seek something, but there's a
Okay,
percentage.
the
I don't know what it
threshold,
is.
okay. All right, but that's really a shock. So, For $8,000 more in the override, if we don't do it, it's gonna cost us $117,000 in unemployment.
In year
I
one.
mean, it would cost, yeah.
And are those real numbers or are those estimates?
Well, I'm assuming that
They
it's as
calculated
close as they
based-
can
yeah.
get.
Right.
But based on the salary, percentage of the
Yeah.
salary.
Roll out those salaries, yeah. I think people should know that that's kind of startling. This is not a free thing by any means.
But the good side,
Yeah.
if there is good side, is you gain that 117,000 next fiscal year.
Right.
Not that it's a good thing, yeah.
Right, yeah.
Pay another
It's the
way.
best of the bad, yeah.
Yeah.
Plus the
Okay.
wage savings.
Okay.
All right, so we have two lines in question. I would ask if Is there a motion? Is there more discussion on the items? I personally feel, those two items aside, I think the budget has been scrutinized and whittled down to where it is. In regards to the two salaries, my opinion is we have voted in increases, single increases in the past before that have cumulatively added to this issue. I think
Yes.
while we may not have been for those increases, they are town meeting increases. They were voted in by the voters. And they're in here to continue into next year.
But I would argue they were voted in as a one-time swizzling of money from one fund to another where there was extra, not in a normal
Correct.
budgetary process as the other salaries you're speaking of were.
Correct.
And I feel that it was not forthcoming and not transparent the way it was presented to the voters. And now when I look at the absolute decimation occurring amongst all departments, but yet those increases stand out, it just really feels unfair.
It's wrong. It's not looking for it. It's not giving the full picture, and I agree with you, Mike. We're here to do the will of the voters, and at the end of the day, if someone
Well,
votes
they'll
on
need to-
something without impression or proper representation, did they really vote for it? So, I don't know. I don't know. And again, everyone knows my opinion, we're heading right for that now.
With this lesson, maybe they will be asking in the future going forward for more information and more detail. I don't know, but I think they're arguable if we rolled them back. I don't think we would win.
I mean, the reality, Francine, is even if we hold them back,
I know.
it's not
I know.
gonna mean anything. And, you know, I was just piggybacking on the point my wife's making, we're heading for that again. And it's every year, and it's the same thing. And analogy I've used is if you got $500 in your pocket, the car payment for the month's $500, let's take it. But you sign up for 3 years when you take it. And we gotta stop somewhere. So maybe going into the warrants and voting hard no's on some of these warrants that are coming up that we know have perpetual incomes and more costs tied to them.
I agree.
And can I ask John one quick question about the Hampshire Regional? In the past, we have mentioned, we've talked about our portion going into Hampshire Regional, as we all know, is very extensive. The Board of Selectmen had mentioned having a conversation with them about cutting that expense. Are we planning on having that conversation of our percentage going in being cut down?
That would be a whole renegotiating of the
Right,
contract.
and you had talked
Ed and I
about-
are looking into that, but more on the temporary side is Ed setting up a meeting, and I gotta check them again, for us to meet with the select board members at the other towns.
Right.
My personal opinion is we voted down at town meeting, another town votes it down, they have to go back and discuss it. Doesn't mean the budget won't get passed, just means they have to go back, relook at it, because if you save $100,000 off the Hampshire regional budget, we get $55,000 directly to us, because
Right.
we're about 55%.
Right.
And Hampshire regional hasn't had any of this cutting, in
Right.
my opinion.
Well,
A lot of
that's-
people don't
right.
like that, but
Right, well, but that's what I'm saying, you know, it's been mentioned before that our percentage going in obviously is extremely high. We have a good portion of the students there that belong to Southampton. However, you know, the conversation did come up that it was time for renegotiation, and I'm just asking if that's a conversation moving forward, since the Board of Selectmen did say
Yeah.
they were planning on doing it.
yeah, we're looking at it, but it's a renegotiation of the contract, and it's not a renegotiation of how much we pay.
Right.
It's a renegotiation of the vote that we get
Correct.
in the process,
Right.
which will let us
Vote
have
the way we want, or have more
have a better
direct.
say, let's put it that way, okay?
Mm-hmm.
If you're 55% and that's your
You
say,
should have 55% of the vote,
right, and that's what we're striving for with that.
period.
Yeah.
It's not gonna change how much we pay.
Okay.
The only way we do that is vote it down.
Vote it
Another
down.
time.
New budgets, different budgets, and,
Yeah,
so,
Okay,
but we are working towards that, right?
yes.
all right.
So I will entertain suggestions or motions for the non-override balance budget.
What are the implications if a motion is made and approved to decrease those salaries?
Then you'd need to find you'd need to determine the increase. I mean, to be honest, I would kind of, it's a different situation from last year. It's not as holistic. It's looking at 2 items. So if the recommendation is to decrease something, I would expect the recommendation, or I would think the recommendation would include wherever the increase would be.
It would reduce it by about $11,000.
Right. If that's the will of the person making the recommendation. I would think there'd be from here to there.
You'd still have to balance it, so you take that 11,000.
Sure, I understand. My question regarding the implication would be to John's point, if there were contracts signed, what does that mean? So we make a motion, someone makes a motion to take that out and give it back to the school or give it back to the highway department. That way.
Involve more legal expenses, we'd have to find that out before the
In
town
both
meeting.
instances, are they contractual agreements?
Building inspector, I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you. I have to re-look at my notes.
I want to say he had a contract.
Yeah, I think so, but I lost
Because
that.
he had to clarify the language shortly after.
Right, yeah.
'Cause it was a select board meeting item. I haven't seen them,
Yeah.
but
Fire chief definitely.
So if we were to decrease their salaries, like you said, we'd have to go through.
Yeah.
And it may very well be, you can't do it, period. I mean, you can't break a legal
Yeah,
contract.
if
They
it's in
come
the
back and sue
contract.
us.
I was about to say, yeah, so there's some more money that would be getting thrown out.
Well,
I mean, the other thing, so
Nothing like asking a question or putting a gun to someone's head.
if you decrease those items and the budget goes forward, you can't transfer. I'm just trying to think if there's a way to refund those in the upcoming year. For instance, like a recourse to refund the decrease. You know, put the money back, but you wouldn't be able to transfer until the end of the year.
Remember, the chief is coming from the ambulance fund. That's a whole separate funding source, so that probably wouldn't, you can't touch that anyways. The building inspector, which is like 6,500, if I remember right?
68.
6,800, yeah.
So his additional funds will be coming from the ambulance?
Right.
Which, if there was a positive, would come back to the town, but there never is.
I mean, the other thing,
We save it for the new ambulances and all that too. That's the fund we take it out of. And we're getting a new ambulance, so the fund is building. And if we have the second and third shift fully staffed, more revenue. So, you know, it's a gamble. It's,
How are we getting
There will
revenue
only
if
be
they're
more
fully staffed?
revenue if you get
There's
more
no
calls.
purchase.
Yes, we gotta get more calls,
fully
John.
staffed second.
John, do we have a call count yet?
Not by having staff, but by having calls you respond to.
Well,
And that's why we keep
you gotta
coming back
remember
with the
though,
calls.
right now, we don't have the staffing to respond to third shift, so we're using East Hampton a lot more, and we're doing intercepts where they're taking all the
But how
calls.
many
Do we have the call
calls are
stats?
we,
Yeah.
there's still, you know,
Off the top of my head,
we can't keep
that's not
going.
enough.
I saw something posted that we were getting 1.6 calls a day.
And we've asked.
That's a fire chief question.
Yeah, we have asked for the stats many times.
I know he's given them to, Ed Abbott has them if you want to see them.
1.6.
1.6 calls a day.
That seems real low.
Saw
number.
that same post.
That seems like a real low number. I don't know off the top of my head.
It was, from
That's
my
like regionalized is
understanding,
what
it
that
came
is.
directly from the fire chief. From
Yeah.
my understanding, that's exactly where it came from. 1.6 calls a day.
So I guess I'd ask Ed
But-
directly, yeah.
Okay.
I'll see if he has one.
Okay. Well, we're obviously not going to solve it. I just don't want to,
I don't think there's anything we can do.
Perpetuated.
I don't think there's, the only thing we can do is hammer on the warrants going forward. and-
Exactly.
I mean, because we're basically in a corner, it's zeroed out.
Yeah.
The additional expenses aren't right, but there's nothing we can do about them. The only one you can hammer on is Tom, but is it worth the $5,000 to go hammer on Tom?
Well, yeah, if there's a contract, you can't hammer on him either, so.
But we,
I mean, the other thing, so let's say it is reduced, if it is reduced and put somewhere else, right? If you go back to how the highway department was managed with wages, they were always underfunded. Funds were transferred in to cover that. So being devil's advocate, just because we do reduce it, doesn't mean by the end of next year,
Doesn't get spent
it doesn't
anyway.
get spent and get put back in there.
Good point.
Just hypothetically thinking it out, if it happened before without any sort of special town meeting vote to put the funds back in there to cover those costs, it's not to say that it won't happen again, just,
Management.
I'm exploring just how it would be funded.
But here's another thing. By us as a committee voting on those line items one way or another, we're raising a concern and we can lobby a discussion in a public forum about warrant transparency and the overall TCO of the warrants that are brought
I think that's
forward.
valid. I agree with you. More of an educational perspective for voters to understand how that transpired.
I mean, and even the TCOs that we're seeing on the surface that are bad doesn't even go into negotiated increases, maintenance of the vehicles. When we go out and we buy an ambulance, there's maintenance costs that's associated with that. That's not represented in there.
Well, obviously less maintenance on a new one, there is an old one.
Then why did our maintenance budget go down from last year?
At
We don't have
all.
the ambulance yet.
So it didn't.
All right, I'm going to make a motion that we approve the non-override budget.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Somebody second it for discussion, just to get it going.
I will second it for discussion.
Can we make a notation that, well, I guess it's not like that, it's a yes or no, right?
Or
Well, you can go up at the town meeting and, you
or
know,
say no and vote against it.
and talk. at
Turn the whole
town meeting.
budget down because of those two line items.
And I think the two line items, whether us as individuals agree or not, the town meeting had a good discussion and they overwhelmingly voted, so.
No,
Well, you weren't there though, Heather, remember? You
But
said you weren't
it wasn't a
there.
transparent picture, and that's the point, and I have heartburn with it too, is we keep saying that, but it's
I
not.
wasn't there, but I know enough to know that it was not
Transparent.
transparently
Same
outlaid
with
to
the
the
Conservation
townspeople.
Commission, we
It
talked
can't
about
even be a
that.
discussion. But, I mean, you said it wasn't, we said it was, some of the people said it
You
was,
should go back
so,
and look at the
you
video.
know, you look at the video and, yeah.
But it wasn't represented that way.
Well, again, that's opinion and that's, we
But
can't do anything
I
about
don't
that.
disagree that I don't think people get
The
their
connection.
arms around the
Yeah.
whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, this is a
Possible.
carry forward
Possible.
that next year, the money is not going to be there to transfer into this, to pay for. We're going to have to find it somewhere.
As a matter of
And,
fact,
and and once you make the commitment, it's like the 2.5%, the override.
It's there forever. It's there forever.
Say it that way and people might understand it.
Yep, there forever. More cash to spend on.
Anyway,
But if you don't think it
With
was
those two-
explained properly, it's up to this group and the select board to do more explaining, right? Because those are the two boards that are really getting up there explaining it. So maybe at this town meeting.
can I just say this year, I don't want to explain anything because we have no information. I'm being very
It's a good
honest with
point,
you.
Nancy.
We have never
Yeah.
seen
Budget with
any detail. I mean, this is basically what we, I know you've participated in the meetings, but we're used to going through
Right.
the whole budget and
Right.
really, you know, lining up one side or another based on the explanation that we're given and an understanding and appreciation, but we didn't have that this year. So we're kind of like looking at numbers on a page
Yeah.
and saying, vote on it.
So that's because the process changed with the town administrator. Mike, you're on the
Yeah, he
team.
is.
So
Yes,
he
he
brings
is.
it back to you folks.
Understand?
Yeah, so
But
that's,
he can't go over the line items, and we don't see the individual department budgets the way we have in the past.
but I don't know if that's critical or necessary, but how about inviting maybe Vicki or Ed to afterwards and have them explain it?
Ed has come, but again, he comes with this, he comes with summary stuff. So we've not had any input into the process, which is, I guess, by design. So,
I mean, I understand, I agree that it has been limited, but I think the intent of the budget process was to kind of move away a little bit from the minutia of the line items, discussing how many reams of paper we're buying. I mean,
understand.
3 years
I
ago, the
understand.
conversations we had regarding the budget were to a level of detail that
It was
at least we
extremely
shouldn't have been having,
Right.
right? maybe this is a little too far.
The other way.
And then you need to adjust next year in the participation, but,
Somewhere in the middle, yeah.
right.
But that's the same on the select board. That's why with Ed, we don't want to hear the minutia. We don't want to hear the dog ears. We don't want to hear a lot of this stuff because that's really not appropriate use of time. The same with you folks, I would think. But you're right. Is there somewhere in the middle you want to meet?
Probably a little more balanced, but
Okay. So my motion still stands.
we have a motion and a second.
And that motion was to vote on it the way it is?
To approve the non-override budget, balanced budget.
So I will call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained?
Doesn't matter.
Abstain.
All right. Now we do the override.
Now the
Warren?
override budget.
Oh, the override. Oh, that's right.
So, Mike, are we gonna vote a line item or just in whole, or? how-
For the override?
Yeah, what's your approach on this?
So I spoke to Ed about our duty, and our duty is to vote for a balanced budget. And I asked him if we just vote on the non-override, if we vote on the override, what the intent should be, what we should do. He suggested voting on both, because they're technically both out there as balanced budgets. I mean, the true balanced budget is the non-override, right? Because then the override adds in a new level of complexity. But,
Right.
I think voting on both is fine.
As a committee, are we going to recommend one budget over another?
I don't know. I mean, that's a good discussion.
I like that.
Well, I guess that was kind of what I was asking. Are we voting yes or no that we recommend an override, or are we voting?
So the way
Yeah, we said the warrant articles kind of dictate that.
it dictates if yes, skip question
Right.
2, right?
Yeah.
Is that how that goes?
Yeah.
So we technically have to vote, we should vote on both.
10 for, yes. And then whichever one the town carries, ultimately they're the decision maker.
I mean, but at the town meeting, if you were adamant about one or the other, you can get up there and discuss it, so they would turn one down and vote.
But the other point of this is if the override doesn't pass, there's still an operating budget in place because the
'Cause it was voted prior.
fallback
Right.
is the non-override that's been approved.
How do you procedurally remove article? If you vote for the annual operating budget, Article 10, the non-override,
Non-override?
you vote for it and it passes.
Yeah.
And then you vote for, and the override budget passes, how do you remove,
I think it says right in
or
there.
is this just a
Yeah.
so this is just supplementing the annual
Right,
operating, is that how they, okay.
For which
So,
one?
okay,
It's the 493.
yeah. All right.
That's what's given back, and then it'll get dumped into the buckets,
Contingent upon
Yeah.
lining up.
approval of the prop override.
Okay.
All right, so,
So how much is that 493 actually?
493?
Is it? There's salary increases in there. But anyway.
so Article 10, do we just, we consider it, I mean, I would consider and recommend just voting on Article 11, not necessarily
It would be implied that we would, yeah.
voting on the budget.
I don't know.
I mean, it depends what happens with the, if there are issues with the line items in the in the override budget, if there are issues with the line items in the override budget that dictate a motion being made to reduce or change, that creates issues, it creates a lot of issues with Article 11. because it changes the values of those.
But it states in Article 11 that Article 11 is really supplemental 493
supplement.
to Article 10, yeah.
Would it make sense, you guys know, I mean, I'm sure Ed knows better. It makes sense to me to vote on the override first.
Well, so you're voting on your base budget.
Yes.
And then you're voting
Voting
to
on the
supplement that
supplement.
base budget. So if the supplement fails, you fall back to the
Yeah,
the base
it's already
budget.
approved.
All right.
I had a hard time understanding it when he first
Yeah.
laid it out, but it actually
Okay.
makes
Makes
decent
sense.
So on the override budget, are there line items with concern or question, things we'd like to discuss?
Can I ask a question? Will there be a sheet to detail what constitutes that 493,000?
Yeah, there's supposed to be a sheet passed out with all the information on there.
So it
What'll
will be
happen
with
will
this,
and
okay.
won't. So
Okay.
without the override and with the override.
All right, so that'll be there at the town meeting when
Yeah.
people
Yes.
walk in.
I think that would be,
there.
that
It'll
would,
be an appendix, I'm
Okay.
sure.
okay.
I'll make sure it's plain and simple, because like you said before, people don't understand it.
Yeah, we don't have to see this whole budget again. We just have to see the line items that are impacted by the override. I'm thinking a
And we
summary.
have that, we've gone over that. at our
Okay,
select board meeting.
all right.
So we want to talk about line items here, or?
I don't know. Because it's a supplement, so we just voted on the balanced budget
Yeah.
in Article 10. Article 11 is a supplement to that. So I don't necessarily know if it's all right for us to review and sort of choose to recommend or not recommend certain lines, because it's a supplement to the budget as a whole. It's not, this is where the money's going to go, but I don't know
I
about
might
that.
counter, we probably have more additional duty to scrutinize this 493 than we do the base budget. We've just been told we have no input into these departments, let them run their departments, let the select board run the town. So now someone's asking for another 493,000 above.
So just hold that thought, right? So if they're asking, so the way I look at it is if they're asking for 493 above, then we vote on the 493.
Well,
Yeah.
shouldn't we vote?
That's where I'm
But
confused. Are we
see-
voting on the whole? Because the
Right,
background
right,
isn't
because
really part of
Right,
this.
Yeah, but if you're voting on the whole, but if you don't agree with the whole 493, so it's all or nothing, so either we sit here as a committee and say.
think-
Well, yeah, we're not going to change the override request amount.
Right,
You'd have
but
to
I
change
think
it
the
on the floor.
townspeople may be looking for us to say, okay, you know what, we're gonna vote on this override, and we want it to move forward, but we wanna make sure you're gonna take that money and put it where it's necessarily needed.
For this year.
Not where it's wanted.
Right, it's a one-year shot.
Yeah, it's a one-year
We
shot,
all
next
know
year
Right.
it goes wherever.
that. Yeah.
It's up for grabs.
That's
Well,
the,
normally it stays in the line items. You know, if the school gets it, we've never taken it out of the school, for instance, that 100,000 last year.
I'm just-
It was in there.
I'm going through and just looking at
History
what
would
this
tell.
change, okay. But that's too much detail. I understand what Mike's saying,
I do too.
but I do think in the interest of transparency, there should be a summary sheet available to people so that they can see what departments or what line items are impacted by the override. And that's, that's a positive, or it could be a negative for some. But I think that gives a better understanding of what the override is about.
Well, we're supposed to be there. Were you at the select board meetings where we went over all the items, override, not override? Just like that right there. Here's what happens if you pass it, here's what happens if you don't.
Okay.
It has the 6.5 positions there, police, fire, highway. I mean, you could change it if you wanted to on the floor and make an amendment or,
Yeah.
But then you have to have copies, and you have to have
You
it
gotta have a whole
balanced,
new
and you
budget.
gotta do the whole thing.
which one.
And
you
I'm
want.
just gonna ask this, and I'm just gonna say this just as an example, like this one here, if the non-override goes through, and that's what we're stuck with, it's saying that we're gonna shed $3,000 off our postage, well, why can't we do that anyway?
I think that's a question people will ask.
Why can't we do that anyway?
I agree. Should be more electronic.
People are gonna want to answer to that question. Well, if you can take it off of the non-override, why can't you just take it off now?
I would be a
And I
betting
will-
man that there's some fluff in there
Yeah, and
that
that's
we're
just-
banking on
Yeah, that's just an
Fuzzy
example
math.
that I'm using. People are gonna say, well, if we can cut it here, you know, if we're gonna give you guys this extra money, why can't we cut it from here and maybe put it aside for some emergency or something, because we have nothing there.
And Sharon, why I don't know where I stand in this override, because my problem is it keeps going every year.
Yeah.
And it's
I know.
2.5 more every year, and at some point, we're gonna have to pay the piper.
Yeah, it's 2.5 regardless of whether we like it or not. This is an additional,
Right, this
Well,
is-
that's what I'm saying, but that
Right.
2.5 is in that pot
Right.
going forward. And,
Right.
and if you just do the simple math as to where the increases that we have contractually for next year and other cost of running a town increases, we're probably at a deficit for next year based on our revenues. Already. So we're either gonna have to bite the bullet this year or next year,
yeah.
unless something changes. And
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know if we're better off trying to pare it down to what we feel is better than 493, or just taking a vote all out for it as a group.
I think if we have any hope that this passes, and I hope the override does pass, because we desperately need it. It's just, you know, if we pare it down and get less, we're just going to start next year that much less, that
hole.
much more in the hole.
Or less in the hole.
and I've been
More.
saying for
Less.
2-3
Yes.
years, 2 or 3 years now, no matter what the budget is, if we don't hold the departments to it, it doesn't mean anything.
Such a good point, John.
But I need 2 more people to vote with me on that, on the select board. I mean, if you got a
It's so
budget,
valid,
you know.
I know.
So I'm gonna keep banging it home, because
Right.
if we give money at the end of the year, we're good.
I don't care where we spend it, but we only got 16,300,000, and we got a certain amount of services that are
When
responsible.
I sat here originally, it was 7 point something, 8 million, and we still can't run the town without going into overrides.
And I don't think the population has blown up that much.
It has not. We've done the numbers. So, what do we want to do?
I like it as the article as the whole,
Okay?
but that's my opinion. I just feel like I look at it as a separate article put forward to supplement the base budget. So I look at it as we're responsible for a base budget, a base balanced budget. This to me is an add-on to that balanced budget to get us to a different place. There was a lot of work and a lot of review that went into the override budget. But if it's coined as a supplement, then to me, it's not a budget, right? It's something more adding to the items that were previously voted. So I think changing the line items, or reviewing and changing line items or some line items, I feel like it's going above and beyond our purview just on that one, because I look at it as a separate article for funding. I don't look at it as
Okay.
line by line by line. The choice of where it's spent will be outlined, but the choice of where it's spent is by the recommended override budget, the one that the finance team looked at and worked on, the one that Ed worked on, the one that the select board looked at. I look at it as their article, their financial article that we recommend.
So what you're saying is yes or no on the whole thing, which is not right. I think we have to scrutinize this thing and pare it down and say as a finance committee, this is what we bring forward, and it's not 493. It's this, or we say it is all 493, because here's where I got a problem. We had no insight into the first balanced budget. We were basically showed, here's where we're taking it for revenue, here's where it is, here's where it's all spent, don't want to hear anything about it. Then we're saying, here's 493 that we're going to supplement this, here's how it's spent, but I don't want to hear any debates or any discussions on that, approve it or not. To me, so what is really the purpose of us here if we're not looking at where the money's being
It to be, I
spent?
guess, to approve the supplement or
Yeah.
disapprove the supplement.
That's it.
So then I guess it's all or nothing as
I
a
think
finance
that- I
committee.
think
Either
that's
you're
what-
comfortable with all 493,000 of where it's getting spent, then you vote yes. If you're not comfortable with where all the 493 is getting spent, vote no.
That's,
I guess if we want it that black and white, I'm fine with it.
I just
I think
don't.
that's all we can do.
I've had an issue with voting on two separate budgets since the beginning, just because I don't, it's not really what we're here to do. We're here to vote on the balanced, and then
Yeah, no, I hear
we're here to vote on the other articles. So I look at this, like I said, as a separate article. If you were to,
I don't
You
think we're
wouldn't
doing
take-
our duty to the town by just going yes or no on the 493, but if you're the chair, I'll definitely follow your lead if that's the way you want to go
And
on
we
it.
can certainly articulate individual thoughts on the floor as finance committee members, right?
absolutely,
Tough one.
yeah, it is. I mean, we haven't looked at this before in this fashion. But actually, if you think about what happened with the school last year, the school had a budget, and we voted on a supplement to that,
Yeah.
the 2.5. We voted on the supplement. We didn't vote on the line items in which they would be spent, where that money would go. We voted for the 150, whatever it was, right? We voted on the supplement, we didn't vote on the line items. Now, it's a single department, out of the whole budget. It's a little different, but I don't know, I'd look at them similarly.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we can't manage the whole process. I mean, at some point, you have to just assume that people are asking for the money in the lines that and for the reasons they've given, and that Ed's approved it.
I think it's the finance group that does that now. You guys are getting a little back on the periphery, but I think that's the process now, and, Mike's, or the chair is the person on that committee. Yeah.
Done a better job of not giving us purview into it and insight into it, and kind of neutered this board. That's why half the board's leaving.
All right, so I have
That was the goal.
a question then. So we have the Board of Selectmen, and we have Ed, who is putting the budgets together. We have the finance team, is that what they're called? That is, they're putting their input into the budgets as well, is that correct?
So basically, Ed and Vicky work during the day on the budget. They
Right.
bring their budget worksheets and the information to the finance team meeting, which everyone was invited to.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
We can't
Oh,
have.
Everyone,
Right.
the invitation was
Right.
extended as long as we didn't create a quorum.
Right.
Let's just throw that out there.
Right,
Another person.
So
right.
one other
At 3
person.
in the afternoon.
Okay, but my
I
question...
get out early to come, I understand, but,
Yeah.
so,
My question in the end, what is our point?
Yeah, thanks,
That's
Sharon.
exactly what I just said, Sharon.
What is the point
Thanks,
of a
Sharon.
finance committee
to
if
follow.
we have a finance
Yeah,
team
exactly.
and a board of selectmen that make all the decisions?
Yeah.
What does our decision matter?
Doesn't.
I'm beginning to feel like our decision
Yeah, it's-
means nothing.
Kind of tough to take time away from
But I will
everybody.
say something,
You're
it
voting
wasn't
to
that way
you're
before.
voting to recommend every single article with financial impact in front of the town.
Okay,
Just because it,
what impact have we had since I've been on this committee?
But
We have had no impact in
but
this town at all.
we've made recommendations contrary to,
And we have.
and that's our job, to make recommendations.
Right, that goes nowhere.
But
that's
that's
not-
the town decision,
that's
that
the
has
town
nothing to do with
decision.
us.
But you changed the
Right.
budget, 2 meetings ago or
Yes,
whatever?
we did.
So
And
that
that
was
passed.
strictly the finance committee. Board of Selectmen
that
didn't like
passed.
it, we didn't agree with it, but you guys got up
Right.
there and argued it and
Right.
made your point and the town
Right,
voted.
and
So
this year,
that
they
was the
didn't,
influence
they
on
did
it.
not accept, the townspeople who voted did not accept our argument.
But did we have a
That's basically
finance
it.
team then?
It was all different last year, if you recall.
The process was-
It was
Well,
100%.
that's what I'm saying. We didn't have a
TA.
finance team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
The
it's
TA
very,
coming
it's,
on, brought that core together.
Yeah, I feel like they brought in a finance team and we were just kind of like,
We all knew about the whole process.
Finance.
Like, it was just, the budget, we're a little off track here, but the budget process bylaw talked about everything that happened this year for the budget process. It outlined everything.
It's all-
It outlined the fact that it was no longer the finance committee meeting where all the budgeting and the budget review took place. It took place at a different time, and then it comes before the finance committee for review.
right, yeah.
We
but I
we were just taken back a step, basically.
A step?
Well, but I mean, and in that process of being involved in all the detail of each budget's
I
construction.
mean, I think one thing to understand is, our job is not to manage the budget of the town.
Right.
We are not the accountants, we are not the managers.
Recommend.
We are a recommending
Spending of our
advisory
money.
board.
Yeah.
And if we don't get the details, how can we recommend? And so I'm willing to acquiesce on the balanced budget because again, at the end of the day, we're taking in 16 million and change. Go spend it where the heck you want, make sure my services are there. Now I have a different opinion on the 493. That's money you're asking our taxpayers to belly up, and I feel that is our responsibility to spend that properly to recommend. But if we, in lieu of time and wanting to move it, I'm willing to vote yes or no on the 493.
Which is, again, I know it's kind of a moot point, but why I really feel a line item override would have been
Much better?
way more transparent and
You
beneficial.
saw me try to.
I know.
Is that what you, I didn't know that,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
So-
leave it to the people.
I say if you want to make a stance, then vote no.
I didn't get.
On the override.
Okay.
And then we get up there and give the reason why we voted no. The reason is because we didn't have details into it. We didn't get to,
But my concern is, we make, they didn't listen to our recommendations in the mid-year. But I'm afraid
But they
that
made
if we
one on that
vote
one.
no, that it's
There's
going to
an
get voted
overcorrection.
down.
I agree.
And we really
I agree
need,
100%.
but then next year we're going to be in the
Maybe
same
that is
boat.
if I'm out 500 or 200. Maybe then there's.
Well, that's where I'd be kind of hoping
Well,
that, our
Either way, it gives you the
opinion
vote.
as a finance committee
Exactly.
would be more.
Which is ultimately who.
So where are we going to cut it from next year? Then we got to cut
That's
more.
where we really need to look into of
the
what are
Hampshire
we going to
Regional,
do.
the fire department, all these things in the
It's-
middle.
Yeah, and I hear you, but again, same thing, we're gonna hear the stories, and then we're gonna have more money in there, and then it's gonna happen for a few more years, and then we're gonna
But
peak out, and
prices-
then,
But prices of things do go up. I
Right.
mean, we're not making this stuff up.
we're not getting any more income, so we gotta stop spending.
Yeah.
I
Or
used to
stop
say,
some things,
but if
yes.
2.5 doesn't pass, this will be the first time townspeople will go, whoa, I didn't realize this.
Seriously, yeah.
Yeah.
It's
In the past,
unfortunately will
everybody
be a
said
big
that,
slap,
but
but
there hasn't been any
Right.
pain.
I don't know.
yeah.
You don't think so?
I
People
don't think so, no.
pay
I
attention.
don't think so. I really don't. I mean, at the end of the day, if there's truth to 1.6 ambulance calls a day, even if we whack out third shift, it isn't gonna do it. At the end of the day, yeah, our police are wonderful, but and maybe it's because of them, we're not in a high crime area.
Right.
But the reality is losing one more police officer, and a few teachers out of the Norris School, and again, there's something we need to look at too. Should we even be in school choice? And should we be right-sizing our school to service our town properly and not try to service everyone? So again, we have to tighten the belt at some point. We can't kick the can down. Is it going to be less painful next year after another year of living high on the hog? Actually, with 2.5% more? I don't think so. So at what point do we stop? And then adding to it with more warrants and more stuff is just wrong. I don't know what to do. We can't go line item by line item. We have to take it or leave it on the full override, and everything's gonna end. It's not gonna end. You could take $7 million out of this budget, and guess what? It still wouldn't end. We'd all figure a way to move forward.
The finance committee can make recommendations, select board can make recommendations, but when it gets to the town meeting,
You got it.
what's it what it is.
But, and I feel that's what our responsibility is to responsibly make recommendations on spending, and I don't think they've been that way. I don't think we've been responsible on our spending, and I don't think it's been a full picture.
So moving forward with this budget, I agree with each department, they really need to tighten that belt on what they're spending money on. Now, who is going to be watching over them and questioning them every quarter or every month when their budgets are coming in and it's like, well, you're halfway through the year and you're at 80 and 90% of your budget. Who is going to be telling them every month what's going on?
This is what I
Let's
just
cut it back.
mentioned before. We've got to track it every single month. Now we're getting the reports.
Right, but who's going to
It's got to be
do
a select board.
that?
It's got to be a town administrator. The select board is going to have to let the town administrator know he's got to do this. That's why the departments are reporting to him.
Okay. Now, if the Board of Selectmen doesn't do that, is it up to the Finance Committee to tell you to do it?
No, you can't tell us.
Or ask you to?
It's an advise.
I think
You?
I think you should be there when we take that up again, because like I was telling Heather, I bring it up, I need 2 other votes to go
Right.
along with that.
Just
We've
so you-
encouraged.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
Just so you know that the bylaws committee is going to resubmit the description of the finance committee based on what we proposed originally, which is very different than what passed. Okay? And the budget process, because that was not their intention. And I know it wasn't ours.
Yeah.
I mean, to get so far removed. And we said monthly discussion
Yeah.
of any over or under expenditure so that we had a handle every month. Now, the select board doesn't want to sit there and crunch numbers every month, then the finance committee should be doing it. But somebody needs to be coming back, not 11 months into the budget, but
Right.
each month as
So
we go.
we're a bit off track
Sorry.
at the moment, and I understand
That was
they're
me.
completely good,
We're trying to
valid
find a
points.
solution. That's
We're
what-
trying to find a solution for the problem we haven't
Yes,
gotten to,
Okay.
which proactively could. So Article 11.
yes. I'm going to move to recommend it.
Let me go back. Don't you have a motion and a second for discussion, or am I?
No, that was wrong.
That was,
the other one?
that was for,
Okay.
Well, don't we again?
We voted on that.
We did.
So Article 11,
3-2.
we have a motion to recommend. Is there a second?
second.
Discussion.
Yeah, our responsibility as a finance committee is to vote no on this. We have to put a balanced budget out there. There's nothing here that's going to cost anyone their lives. At the end of the day, we cannot continue to spend money the way we spend in this town unchecked. We cannot continue to put articles forward and not look towards the future and what the cost is. If we don't bite the bullet today, it'll be twice as big of a bullet tomorrow because of the compounding effect of the 2.5%. The choice is simple.
Okay, but the cutback, it's going to work the same way going forward. But if you don't pass this, then next year, things are going to cost more, and we're just going to get further and further behind.
It happens under either scenario,
Yeah,
Francine.
but now we're worse
I know,
because we've got
but
more
we're-
expenses.
But I think we're
We got
setting...
493,000 more in expenses. So the 2.5% or whatever number you want to use as natural increases is that much more. It's compounding the situation. It's just like retirement. The sooner you get your money into a retirement account, you let the years do the work for you. The sooner you stop your debt, the sooner you stop your baseline spending, the better off you are longer term.
The issue is, though, if you said you gotta stick to 2.5% per year, you'd be cutting back every year until
Every
we
year.
have no town
That's
left.
what I'm
And
saying.
we've
You
never
can't
gonna be.
say that.
So let's come up with a growth plan. We don't have one. We don't have
But
one.
the growth plan is not the solution. More
So
development
then
just
stop-
costs more money.
No, it doesn't. I'll give you the facts, and I'm gonna bring facts to the select board. It doesn't. Low-income housing does, because you have a lower tax basis, and statistics show more children in those, 300, 400,000 range. So at the end of the day,
Is
yes,
that the lower income housing, 300,000 or 400,000?
that's what it
It
is.
would be based
It
on the
is,
median.
based on the median in Springfield. If you,
In Springfield, yeah, but.
that's what we have to live to here.
But $300,000 or $400,000 house isn't low
John,
income.
that's here, that's what
As
it
it's
is. That's in
defined
this,
as
as it's
affordable
defined by the
housing.
town in
Yes, it
affordable
is.
housing.
But from a reality point of view, anybody can afford a $400,000 house isn't
It's not low income.
low income.
But
And they bring children with them.
the point is, you're not looking at the houses properly because they're going at 700, 650, somewhere in that neighborhood in this town.
Yeah, where?
They are.
Yeah.
Okay, just look at the
Oh,
recently
well.
sold.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, and then I will show you facts here in another month when things are done as to what it does. So if you don't want that, then understand we're going to stay at 6,000 people, right? So now cut the services to match the 6,000 people, because the services we give match about 10,000
I don't
people.
disagree with you
what
about
are we
some of
doing?
those things.
Right.
What are we doing?
But what I'm arguing with you, that more development is going to mean more highway expenses.
Francine,
more
we're not debating
everything,
development, we're debating
more-
like 493
more-
right now.
I understand, but you're saying this is what the solution is to grow the town.
No.
I'm saying I'm not so sure about that.
Growing income. So where do we grow income? How do we grow income? So basically what we're coming up with here is there's no way of growing income. We can't grow business because there's no sewer in town,
sewers.
okay? We can't grow bedrooms, be in a bedroom community because no one wants them, and it's a bad math, and I can show you good math on it with the right houses and the right mix and doing it properly, but we'll call it bad math. So let's just say we're stuck. We cannot increase our income. So what does that leave to do?
Cut expenses.
You got it. So why kick the can down the road another year? Why?
Then I guess vote against the Prop 2.5.
That's my argument. That's what I'm debating right now.
Okay, so let's take a vote. I propose.
I-
Are you calling the vote?
No, I just
Kennedy,
said,
if you
I just said, I move
Yeah,
to recommend it.
We have a
You-
second.
And we're open to discussion right now.
You seconded it,
And
so.
we're open for discussion. And
We
that-
can't call a vote until we were,
And that's my opinion, is at what point do we draw that line? And again, we're not allowed, we're told to be financial drones, not necessarily look at where it's spending, so you have to look at the numbers in your position. And if you look at the numbers, they cannot be sustained by this override. This is not a fix. So
No,
how
it's
can
just
you
a band-aid.
recommend this as a financial member? You can't, you really can't.
If you really feel that way, you should vote against it, even if you're the only one voting against it, to
Oh, I'm
show
going to.
that you know what I mean?
I'm going to, but I'm lobbying to get other people on board with me
People
here.
can't be
Right.
swayed by, oh, I'm in the middle of a public forum, I don't want to say this or that. I mean,
Right.
they got to vote what
And
they
they
really feel.
won't, yeah.
Not
I'm
at
sort
the
of
town
looking
meeting.
at it as a stopgap, as a reset the clock. That we've been behind the 8 ball and just kind of like set another, a baseline, reset it, and then going forward live within our means. However that's going to be, but that has to be. I
My
think we're
thought
too
is,
far
in
behind.
a 6-year period, the population's grown 3% or less, and our tax rates increased 35%.
And how many people is that
And the
3%?
services,
Increased
Right.
35%.
In 6 years, the tax rate's increased
It has.
2.5 per year. Tax rate.
Yes.
That's all it can increase.
Well, and then she's saying compounded.
Well, it's 2.5, 2.5,
That's-
2.5. That's only 7.5 compounded, maybe
no, it
8.
used to be
2.5 times
12
2.5.
something per thousand, and then now it's up to 17.6. So you do the math.
But-
The mill
but-
rate's not a percent, it's,
Well, you were saying that 30-some%, it's only
that's the,
7.5%.
that's the effective, no, John, that's wrong.
Legally, we can only go up 2.5 a year. and that's
Of the
not-
town, but then you could disperse that
Right.
into property
But
tax.
your particular tax is only going up 2.5 per year. If we have more houses built, get more tax in there, that's maybe what you're talking about. But individual, it's only 2.5 a year.
The growth doesn't warrant the increase, that's my point.
Right, the growth is not gonna cover it.
so we have a motion
Yeah.
and a second.
And a discussion going on, Chair, with all due respect. Just pulling it back. But it's pretty relevant right there. I mean,
My purpose of seconding this motion, my purpose is with hopes of the town completely understanding that this is a Band-Aid, that they need to be more involved and they need to watch what it is our people in town are doing and not doing with the money that they are handing over. My hopes is they're going to understand that moving forward, they need to voice their opinions more. They can't sit back and hope that the town is doing the right thing.
But they need the information.
Right. We need to put that out there. We need to let them know at this meeting that, you know, we're going to do what we can for our part to give them the information they need to make their decision. But it can't just be the finance committee to give them the full information. The Board of Selectmen has to be on board to make sure that everybody understands exactly what is in this article, what is going forward, and what we're going to do to make sure it stays this way.
I would venture to say the majority of the people that show up for town meeting already know which way they're going to vote. History
Right.
would show they do not take our recommendations really
Right.
to heart, so vote your
But I'm,
conscience here,
right,
people, and that's all
and
we can
I'm,
do.
from what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, I'm truly, truly hoping that we are gonna get a lot more people there than norm.
on this one we will. On this one we will. And then,
You usually have the same people that show up, it's the same people that know what's going on, it's the same people that vote for this side and not this side. But from what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing, I'm truly hoping that that is gonna be a big turnaround.
You see how many people show up at a select board meeting. If it's for a school, we get a good group. If it's a COA, you get a good group. But other than that, it's very sparse.
Right.
I wish we had a number of how many people watch these things,
Yeah.
either live or on
You can
tape.
check
Right.
the views when you go and look, and there's
Can you?
there's not many.
that's online, that's not live.
But it's not
That's-
live.
Oh, was it live?
Yeah, you don't know who's going
Yeah,
live, you just
yeah,
know who's
that's true.
going
Because
live.
the information's out there, like Mike says,
Right.
we've been through this stuff line by line by line, and
Well, look
They
at
don't do ratings for public television.
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a reason.
God.
I think, I've been on this committee for 2 years, and I can tell you that the amount of public comment, I think of all the meetings I've been to, we've had 3 or 4.
What, you mean this isn't a closed meeting?
You would think it was.
But seriously, you're right. People don't, they vote because they know what they want to vote before they go to the...
Again, I
Right.
think our traditional responsibility to this board is to say no, because you're kicking the can down the road, and it will not get solved, and it will compound more. It will. And we'll be in this discussion next year, and we'll be trying to dig out more, and we'll be hearing the same discussions again. And I just, I don't see us doing it any other way but to cut.
No?
So we have a motion and a second. I'll call for a vote
What's the motion again, to accept it as it
to
is?
approve Article 11 as is. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Nay.
It's up to you, Mike.
Aye. Well, I agree wholeheartedly that there needs to be adjustments and fixes.
Your wordsmith,
I don't agree with decimating the school and the fire department EMS services at this point. I think there needs to be more engaged discussion before drastic cuts are made. I don't think the discussions have happened. I don't think it's been really looked at, reducing the expenses and how to manage within those means, but
I don't think
Never will.
there's been serious attempt to identify alternatives that people can choose.
And they won't
That's all.
tell us before. They won't
And I
before.
think that,
There may, if the select board has new blood, then perhaps.
do we have to go over the rest of these?
we do.
So we got done two.
We got two done.
I don't think we have to do one and two, do we?
We do not. We do not have to do Article 1. We do not have to look at Article 2. We do not have to look at Article 3, although I'm highly in favor.
Don't try to influence.
Article 4, citizen petition acquisition of property on College Highway. To see if the town will vote to raise, appropriate, or transfer from available funds, accept gifts, grants, or borrow up to $1.2 million for the purpose of acquiring for municipal use certain real estate located at College Highway, now formerly owned by the heirs of Frank and Lucille Wayne, consisting of 51 acres, more or less, shown on the assessor's map parcel. And further, to authorize the town to acquire said property by gift. Goes on and on, but I think our concentration is on the first part, acquisition of property through $1.2 million.
I make a motion, we vote no.
We have a motion, do not recommend. Is there a second? I will second that for
Now, that's
discussion.
a citizen's petition.
There's really no difference though, right?
Well, the select board couldn't do anything.
Right.
Okay.
They could choose not to, right? I mean, this could go through and you could say, we're not
We're
doing
going to
anything.
say no or yes to it.
Right.
You don't
Are we
have to
open,
Hands off.
open for discussion now?
It's hands off.
All right, so the reason why
I think I'll-
reason why I voted no is because there was no outline of where this money's coming from, and I'm not even sure we got a legal right for this land. Do I disagree with the town's effort to go after this land? Absolutely not, and I feel it should have been done earlier in the process, and we should have exercised our right based on the amount of income we've given away over the years to this property, but the ship's already sailed. There's no financial plan here. It's just going to incur more legal expenses for us, and we're not going to win. You're not going to get it under eminent domain the way it
You
rolled
say that
out.
because they already have a contract.
It's already done. The title's already transferred. It's already sold.
Then why is this in here?
Because a citizen can bring, you get 10 people to sign anything, you can bring anything forward.
Well, according, if
So
you
this
go
is
to the
citizen.
focus group that we had last week, there was
No,
like
I wasn't in town.
175
Yeah.
people there. And one of the attorneys said that if it was sold under the wrong, if it was fraudulently sold, like we knew it was going to be converted, but we're playing along,
Yeah.
that's fraud, and we can go back and get it with very little legal expense, in his opinion.
Yes.
Glendale has a purchase and sale, and that'll be up at tomorrow's meeting, because we can't exercise the first right of refusal on that.
You say can or can't?
Can.
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 Can. Yes. See, and
That's
that's,
transferred ownership.
yes, because it has.
Right, and the sellers have given us.
Give
notice.
notice.
Yes. See,
They didn't follow in this instance, they did
But
not.
correct, but you get the signed affidavit by a clerk saying that they're not gonna do it, then it's gonna turn to he said, she said, and a lot of
But
lawyers.
even after
like
the
to-
fact, even if it's a year or two down the road, if there was intent to defraud, we can still go after it.
So they do have recourse for
Yeah.
taxes.
So now, if the town wanted to go after it, they can make a
No.
decision to do it.
What did you just say about the town clerk?
An affidavit.
They made it, signed or validated an affidavit saying from the current owners or the people that bought it that they're using it for a cow pasture and.
Keeping it in chapter.
Keeping it.
Yeah, there are no intention of converting it, even though it is
To
a commercial loan on it, and
I
there was a
just,
plan.
I just question where on earth we would manage to find $1.2
Well,
Well, that
million
would have to
as
be
much
through
as.
Kestrel or CPA.
Do they offer
money.
grants for these types of things?
Yes.
Or would it be
There's
like a
grants
bridge
and there's
loan
some
kind of a thing?
loans. Yeah, there's bridge loans, CPA has some money.
I personally think we'd focus on, if we want to start exercising our right and send a notice to people who have been hiding their land in this, I'd say we go after Glendale.
We asked the assessors to come forward with a list of all chapter land now, and whether they're sending out the annual notice that's required by law.
Yeah, I mean, it's a prime piece of property, we lost it.
It's unfortunate that we didn't have the
I see us
opportunity.
spending 20, 25,000 in legal fees, and
I mean, I don't know how the vote's gonna go or anything like that, so, you know.
And then it's just a recommendation, again, I try to take, I do get emotional, and I do have points of view, but I try to always look at things from a financial, and I just don't think it's worth
My
our time and
understanding
effort.
is that we could take, if we bought this, correct me if I'm
I
wrong,
don't know what you're
John,
gonna say.
that we could take and use a portion of the property that we wanted, and we could sell the rest off
That's
ourselves.
possible, yeah.
Yeah,
If
but we
you
can-
wanna be in the real estate.
Yeah, we can
business.
sell assets right now, we could sell a brief field to a minor league baseball team.
No, but I'm just.
Especially after the $1 million approval we put into
It
it.
doesn't mean that we need, that, we'd be locked into,
holding it, yeah.
52 acres of
Yeah,
property,
right.
when we only need 8.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're in the financial, I mean, I understand we talk about CPA funds or Kestrel funds, but as a town, are we in a financial position to take on $1.2 million in debt for a possible unknown future development?
And then here's the other downside. We all know what's gonna happen. There's gonna be a strip mall there, and hopefully not a safety complex, because we'll raise enough stink about that.
Then our revenue goes up.
Well, but exactly, that was the point I was getting at here. That's exactly. Now, this other piece of property, I don't see it being
On
retail.
Glendale, no.
I don't see it being retail, so, yeah. So again,
Zone, right?
that's the business part of me says, why are we gonna fight this when it's a legal battle that we're gonna end up spending, or someone's gonna spend their money, when I'd rather see it.
We don't know if we're gonna find it, that's up to the
Yeah.
town.
So what was this property,
Which one?
the one on
College Highway?
College Highway, just on College Highway? This property is nothing right now,
Right.
right?
It's fields. You know where
It's-
Strawberry Manor is?
Right.
Right across from
next
Cumberland
door.
Farm.
Right,
Yeah.
and I'm sorry, what is it considered? What kind of land?
Forestry.
It's 61A,
So
which is
that's-
agricultural.
yeah.
Glendale is forestry.
Oh, it's Glendale Forest, okay.
That's
So at 61A, you get a break on your taxes because
80% or
you're
so.
dedicating the land to be
You
undeveloped.
get a real good chunk off your taxes. And you've got to pay back money when it's taken out of chapter land.
Converted back to a use.
Only if it's
Right.
before the period, and then 1 year after the period, I think, is a little grace
Yeah, the law
period.
changed not too long ago. That's really the messy thing. It used to be, there was no,
Period ever got taken
the
out?
law was changed X amount of years ago after that Sudbury case was changed. After that was 1 year,
Yeah.
which is easy to sit on
I
land
know,
for that.
absolutely.
But if there's commercial loans, if there's planning, going before the planning commission, all
Did
that
it take
stuff.
a year?
Yeah. But I mean, to me, that is intent.
I know.
One attorney said no, one attorney said yes.
But the problem we got here is that
Yeah.
that title is transferred, which makes it even that much harder.
Definitely.
It definitely makes it harder. And
But so the people who previously owned it got a tax break
Yes.
because it, all right.
Yes.
And what was it sold as?
It was
1.2
sold-
million.
What was it sold as? What type of
They
property
don't have
was
to
it
list
sold
it, they
as?
just sold it. They don't
The
have to.
listing said prime for development,
You're right.
commercial. I mean,
Well, how could they sell it as that if that's not what it's listed as?
Because the
How
new
would that
owner
be?
signed an affidavit and said he's gonna use it for
I
farming.
think this is.
We're getting a little
my
bit in the weeds.
vein.
Okay.
That was just, here's what you can do with it. You can buy it and keep it in chapter land, which this owner signed an affidavit
Says he's
to do.
going.
So,
Says he's going. And then, the only thing that, and I'm glad to see it, is we need to to exercise our right. Again, it's a give for a get. If we're gonna give our tax money, we need to get something. That's a right of first refusal and putting something in the back of someo's brain that if I take a tax break, the
Absolutely.
town may buy my land from me when I go to sell
But
it.
also, there's penalties and back taxes.
There is.
So we have a motion and a second to not recommend. Is there other discussion? Take a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Not recommended. All right, Article 5 is not within our purview. Article 6, not within our purview. Article 7 is not within our purview.
That's the old one, Tom.
Yeah, but they're pretty much lined up, aren't they?
Oh, that's right, the only thing that was changed was
What the fire?
the, yeah,
Ambulance.
right.
Article 8 is not within our purview,
Mine.
but I think the question about whether or not they're allowed to search your sweat trash is in. It is a valid question to ask on the floor. It's something that came up when we looked at it last week, was what is their
Because we did talk about that, right?
Article 9, amendment to the town meeting bylaw quorum, is not within our purview.
We may have little notes written in there somewhere.
10 and 11 have been voted.
Because some of them I put like,
Article 12, transfer station enterprise fiscal 2019 budget. So this is the enterprise fund for the transfer station.
So do we ever get an idea if this is breaking even? Where are the revenues? Those are called out in our budget.
So 188 will come from the transfer station enterprise revenues. My understanding is that this is the first year, well, actually, I think last year was the first year they made money because they're using money from retained earnings to fund this budget this year. So they were able to retain some from the previous
So
year.
this does not show up in the
No.
revenue. So the revenues don't,
No.
they just get dumped in
No.
to the
It's
16
like a
million?
revolving fund.
The revenues are in,
So we make no money off our trash?
we do this year.
But it
Well, I would say
goes into the enterprise.
Maybe the opposite here. They're taking 188 from transfer station expense revenues, and what they're saying is they need 193,
5,000.
so they have to draw some from
From
retained
retained.
earnings. So they're not gonna meet the expenses with the revenue, so they're pulling some.
They're making 188,000 right
Right.
now.
And my question was, how much do we have in retained earnings? And the number was pretty sky high. It was over six figures. I want to say 200,000, but don't quote me on that.
So-
It was way up there.
We're cutting everywhere and they're not making their,
Yeah, they're not making.
it's a tough one.
But again, it's not coming out anywhere but the transfer station and retained earnings of the transfer station. So years they make money, it goes into retained earnings. Years they need to use it. I want to say this is the first year that they had to take from it.
Yeah. I hope someone would keep a keen eye on that to make sure it's not an ongoing losing enterprise here.
Well, I questioned that this time to find out how much was in there, because I said, we're sucking money from the retained earnings.
How much
And it
was in there?
I think there was like 200,000, don't quote me, it was a large number, once I found out, so I said, okay, 5,000 1 year. I may be wrong in that number, so don't,
Well, I guess because what's the theory there? That enterprise is paid for by people that own the passes, so the money should stay with the people that own the passes and not come back to the town?
well, bags and everything, all that.
I mean, it goes towards the service that you're,
It pays the
paying
wages
for.
of the people who manage.
No, I understand,
and the
but there's-
cost of hauling the trash.
There's
Yeah,
200
so-
grand extra, and I was just wondering why it's not
Don't
zeroed
take that
out.
number.
And who knows how long that number had been accumulating. I remember from previous discussions, oh, I thought this transfer station was in the red last year too, was it not?
That's all.
see, my understanding was it was to be in the good this year, because we would have paid down
Those
a large
monetary
enough
fees?
amount for the capping to where the revenues would have exceeded the expenses. So that's where I'm a little confused on this.
can I ask one ridiculous question on that?
No.
And this is a very, 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 very small amount, however. Why does the transfer station pay the town hall $150 to sell bags?
pay them?
Administrative fee, probably.
Why?
Because
You
they're
have
in
to
revolving
pay for
fund
the-
and they don't come back.
So you have to pay for the cost to provide that service. It's no different than Donna and Vicky charging the water
To send out
enterprise
bills.
fund to do some of the work for
Send
them.
out
That's-
So you bill the enterprise funds for a service that the town.
No, Sharon, if all the profits were coming back to the town, sure, then we would have to provide other services at free of charge included, because we're getting the profit. We don't get the profit. So trash, we set up to run on its own profit in there. And so thus for there, if they use any of our services, we have to charge them for those services.
Yes.
Or we're giving free services to a business, basically. That's what it
And
is.
that's, I mean,
But
when we get to the next item, we'll talk about my concerns about that stuff. But yeah,
Look,
you're,
I don't see how we're not making any money on trash.
Yeah, I
It was
thought,
dictated by the permitting cost and the contracts.
Well, I think,
Removal.
yeah, I think the problem is, we got all private industries in town, so you don't get enough mass going to the landfill, or if you were to, it'd probably be a good study to see if we just lay it across the board and say it is gonna be, and we outsource it, and everyone has to do trash service.
but, yeah, but the biggest expense that they have is who they pay.
The
Yeah,
whole-
dollars.
Yeah.
The haul,
away.
if we had like a 10-year contract for, what, like $150,000, the biggest expense is going to the people who haul the
Yeah.
trash
But if you
away.
get more, you can negotiate a better rate, or if you outsource it, and again, that's why the mafia's into trash, because there's a lot of money in trash. So I just sit here,
Dan said that.
I just sit here and wonder as a town why we're not making any money on trash and,
Yeah.
and actually losing $5,000 on
Well,
trash.
this is the first time I believe that that's happened.
Okay.
You know, so the cost went up. I know where I work, the tipping fees just went up quite a bit, and the trash hauler came back to us, so we gotta cancel our contract for next year. We can't afford
But
it.
if I did,
Ours went up too.
Okay.
I would say
Some of the places are getting full too.
driven by some of the, I feel like I see more trash trucks around town. Like, you
Yeah.
know, we use the same, I see them all over the place
Yeah, me
now.
too.
Yeah.
Before when I
So
called,
many.
it was, where are you in town? We're not sure if we service your area. Now I see the trash people we use all over the place.
Yeah.
So they're driving all around. So they're definitely picking up customers in town.
And new companies have come in
Right.
too, so yeah, you're probably just losing.
It's not that expensive either. My neighbor
not,
does it.
yeah.
And I went, whoa. that's-
Yeah,
We do it, that's how we've always done
You
it.
get two 55-gallon totes, or
And
no,
it's so
80.
easy, you just leave
What do
it
you
in
get?
No, it's
there.
90.
Yeah.
Two
I go to the
90-gallon
transfer station
totes.
'cause I recycle.
You can
I
put
just like
so
going
much
there.
stuff in
Oh,
there.
they do recycling too.
True. I mean, it's kind of a
You're welcome to
community
reach.
place, you know?
But if you notice, there's
My mom,
also
yeah.
I don't
taking,
get.
but if you also notice, the water department in the next article is taking 20,000 from its retained earnings as well. So this is not like unique to the transfer station.
No,
It's maybe what they do to balance it.
Understand.
So for Article 12,
I make a motion to recommend.
I'll
we have a
second.
motion and a second. Discussion, all in favor?
I,
Recommend. Water Enterprise Fund. So this one, we have an article in front of us. I sent out an email earlier today. The Water Department has prepared a second budget in case their enterprise budget gets voted down, because it does include wage increases for, I know at least the superintendent, I'm not sure if the other staff is, I'm going to assume the other staff.
And
I
but-
believe so. We brought this up, yeah.
Yeah.
And can I just mention, this is one of the places we're not seeing the detailed budget. If we had not asked this question,
Right.
we asked it of Ed, it came up again at the select board meeting, and we got an answer that yes, this figure does include. It's just in the interest of transparency. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just
Yeah.
saying that people need to know.
I wonder if we should have asked the same on Article 12 wages.
So they're making, well, one of them,
Water department is different than, you know, the transfer.
I'm just trying to think, I don't know, do the transfer station employees still work part-time at the highway, or is one dedicated to transfer, or are they both part-time?
When Dave was there, he was just on there, but Keith, I think,
Tom is just there.
And they do reimburse the highway department for the time over there.
Oh, that's the-
or it's hours.
right.
Okay.
And the highway department goes on the water department side, and there's a transfer there.
Yeah, so that's the question. When highway people work for the water department, are they...
There's a transfer of funding, yeah.
Yes, there is, but are they getting a wage increase?
No, because that came up at our last select board meeting, and I said, wait a minute, you can't get 2%. We don't have much control over the water. But we said, you can't pay them 2% more when they work for the water department and not pay them that 2%, so.
It'd just be interesting to know what this figure is without the, well, if we just take 2% off the top,
Yep,
or is
for the wages.
2% apply to everyone?
Yeah, it works for them.
What's 2%, $4,000?
Got that.
So, because Article 13 does have increases in the wages, the Water Enterprise, the Water Commission has a separate budget in case this gets voted down. I'm assuming the separate budget
Is less than 2%.
is less than 2%.
Here's a crazy thing. They made the money, they managed it, let them get the increase. My opinion. I mean, that's based, their revenues are based off of what they're selling and bringing in. They balance their budget.
Would you do that?
But they're in a position, let me just say this to you, they're in a position to pass along their increases, whether they're 2.5%, 10%, they raise the rate. So it's not like management in as much it is.
Will the
More because it's cost more.
voters will vote in the increases. I mean, again,
I'm
you
just-
can't have the
I'm
argument both ways.
I'm not, I'm putting it in perspective, this is what's happening.
But
I understand.
I'm not on water, but if you're not happy with the rate and the service, you vote for new management of the service through the voting
Well,
commission.
that's-
That's how that works if you don't,
Right.
or you drill a well.
That's the only place we have a vote, is
Right.
on who holds the position as opposed to the actual budget.
Yeah, and I
Well,
guess.
no, I mean, you do have, someone could stand up and make a motion to change what's here, subject to appropriation.
Well, 'cause,
I
you
feel
know,
it's unfair, but again, we've got several instances of unfair
Fair,
salary increases that we can't speak to, so.
They balance their
Nobody's
budget.
getting the 2%
I'd like to
except
be
here.
consistent, if it's unfair. it's
Even the
unfair.
school
we had
said
to,
they
we
won't
voted
give
for that.
2%. Norris said they wouldn't give 2% in their contract.
We had to get the chief.
And we're going into contract negotiations now for all three unions. So if the water department gets it and nobody else does,
But they.
That's my
But to me,
argument.
they balance their budget.
well,
Well, if I could just,
Well, Francine
if
said
I'm out
they
of
charge us
balance,
more.
I say, okay, so you give me $10
so
more,
let me ask you this
then I'll
question.
be
Can the fire
balanced.
department
That's how it's
charge
working.
more for their services so they can balance their budget and be
Well,
self-funding?
they are. What do you think the 2.5 override
This
is?
is,
That's
That's exactly, no, but that's it. It's
isn't.
charging more service, John. It's
But
just how you
But
spend
we're
it.
making more money.
Because we're increasing their taxes.
Right, but they're not getting an
but
increase.
people are not getting salary increases
Right.
with the override.
Yes, sir. Chief.
Well, they're getting it with or without the override.
Right.
But everybody
Oh,
else is.
even worse. Thank you for
Yeah.
pointing that out, Francine.
I'm not trying to rub salt.
All right, but it was hot.
We digress.
Anyway, so here we are.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Again, I have fiscal responsibility, and I understand probably extortion and a captive audience that they have. But
I could always drill a well.
I can recommend a great person to drill a well.
I'll entertain a motion.
One way or the other, right?
I make a motion, we approve. How's that?
We have a motion to recommend. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Just open for discussion.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, passes.
There's nothing that stops you from getting up on the floor, or stops me or anyone from saying, by the way, this is one of the only departments.
But seriously, if you want to say that, you should vote it down, you know? Like,
Well,
you're saying I'm...
Well, for the ones that didn't.
I sort of did.
Saying-
Yeah, I mean, you
if
people
I
didn't-
wasn't voting, it was because
I didn't
we wrote it
vote.
down.
They didn't vote, right? Or
Right.
Francine didn't vote.
Okay.
I think, and, you know, the reason why I brought it forward is because I don't have necessarily have a dog in the hunt, but at the end of the day, they've got a balanced budget, and it's about the only one I've seen. Right or wrong. or
Because.
indifferent. I know, Francine, I know.
Article 14, to see if the town will vote to transfer $20,000 $401 to fund the amortization of WPAT bonds, said sum to be taken from WPAT loan repayment account or take any other action relative thereto. This one we've gone over. It's a cyclical transfer. So I'll entertain a motion.
I move that we recommend.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Article 15.
It's being scratched.
No. This
They
is,
should have
I'm
changed the
sorry.
numbers on yours,
I'm
right?
sorry.
Is 15 transfer for PEG?
No, 15 is the 100.
the 100,000.
No, there were 200,000. This is
Okay.
just
This
the
is
rate.
the,
Yeah.
it's a cyclical.
Right, this is-
Oh, this is
You're
the
right.
EMS, okay, so.
Right.
Article 15, to see if the town will vote to transfer $100,000 to fund EMS ambulance-related expenses.
Ambulance receipts.
Said sum to be taken from ambulance receipts.
I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Recommend.
Oops, sorry. Is there a second?
And what does this pay for?
This pays for a portion of the EMS and ambulance services.
It comes
So
from
it's
ambulance receipts.
from the ambulance receipts. So the money they bring in every year is transferred into
money they-
I'm not sure, but I think they call
Yes.
this self-funding.
Yes, they do. Yes.
Yeah, but they're,
So every year, I think we transfer twice.
but they're,
you
but they're the
can't-
capital. I know, but they're not paying the
You
capital back.
can only transfer what you have.
Yeah.
So we transfer at the annual, then we do another transfer at
So
the,
this
The
should
reality is we
theoretically
paid for
fund
the ambulance, we
those
should be getting
salaries
30 grand back.
or through the end of the fiscal year.
Funds the new
I don't think
It
these
does-
are, yeah.
so it funds
That came
a
out.
portion, and then more revenue comes in, and you transfer it to fund the remainder or whatever's left. It's, you can't,
I thought it was.
you plan on the revenue, but you can't transfer the revenue until it comes.
Theirs, if we took out a loan, they're paying the
I'll make a motion to
loan
approve
out
Article
of the
15.
ambulance receipts
Yeah,
for the
I see.
ambulance.
So we have a motion,
Second.
Chief seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Article 16, transfer for PEG programming related expenses, to see if the town will vote to transfer $18,877.47 to pay East Hampton Media for audio-visual services per town's contract. Said sum to be taken from PEG programming receipts reserved for appropriation account or take any other action relative thereto.
No, it's not a budget item. That's just coming from the funds we have, we get back from the cable company.
So negotiated funds come in, those funds utilized.
I only have one, can we have a stipulation to the approval? That
Exceed
they
the balance.
purchased new audio and video equipment.
We've already talked to them about that for, especially
Okay.
down in the main room.
We can't
the
say that?
microphones and,
Why is it
we're
not
looking at
working?
some overhead
You
microphone.
people can't hear.
And they're getting paid
But
for
I'm saying
service, so we
the
should get
whole
the
last,
best
I mean, if you
equipment
missed the
for service.
last meeting on chapter,
Yeah, I
you
did.
couldn't get to see it anyway because
Hand some mics out in the crowd.
it's just, yeah,
So this is a vote to transfer.
I understand.
We can always, the town can always withhold transfer until said services have been approved.
There's a typo in here.
I saw.
I saw that where it says.
And do we know what the balance is in that account? And is that adequate?
I think
Is
we
it
get
funded?
50,000 a year from the cable company,
Something like that.
50,000, yeah.
All right. I think of these things. There are places that the cable company is, they have no access to the internet. These people are still using DSL in town.
Yes, they are.
I think in whatever negotiations we do going forward, the stipulation that the cable company install.
There are some streets where they don't go all the way down,
Well, some streets.
and they require them to run the full cable.
Yep,
Yeah, we're stuck with the cable company, you take them or leave them.
I know.
Yeah, right?
Wish we could, I get these infinity things all the time with these
I
great
know.
deals. You
Yeah.
can't use them because
You can't use them.
So, I don't think we have,
All right, I move to approve, recommend.
is there a second?
What are we on? Yeah.
Article 16.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Article 17, transfer to assessor's financial software to see if the town will vote to transfer $15,000 from the operational stabilization fund to the assessor's capital budget to fund replacement of the assessor's financial software or take any other action relative thereto.
Now, the explanation that was given is they need this to process the property tax things now. That might be a good thing if you don't get a tax bill, but it'd be a bad thing for the town.
Right.
So I think they need That was what I thought was
So
explained.
this is no more that vision software? This is a
Right.
whole new, brand new, and what, does the data just transfer over?
I-
Assessments stay the same? Is it a whole new
I-
program? Do we know?
That
It's a
I
whole
don't
new
know.
software program.
Yeah. I think what's happened is they won't support this vision software
Yeah, I remember
anymore.
hearing that, yeah.
Yeah.
I make
That's
a
all I know.
motion to approve the transfer, 15,000.
Yeah, and it's also goes along with the next one.
Yes.
Yeah, the next one, I got some questions on them, so.
Well, there's a
let's vote on
motion
this one.
on
I'll second.
17.
So there's a motion, I'm sorry, there's a motion and a second. Discussion.
I guess the only question I would have is what's the ongoing maintenance support of this? You don't buy software without maintenance support, so.
I believe there's another line item.
Is there, as long as their expense, normal
No, there
expenses
is,
covers
a
it?
normal, in their budget, there is an expense for the reoccurring cost of maintaining the previous software.
Okay, so as long as that kind of transfers over, that would be my question at the end of the day. It really is a one-time
There's a
cost.
warranty brand new from the beginning. at
No,
least
you always
for a
gotta
period of
have,
time.
you always gotta have software support for any bugs, any releases, any of the crap. It's just the way it goes. It's a little bit less in year one, but you typically buy a 3-year type support package or something like that. But
All right, so we have a motion and a, do we have a motion?
I'll
Yeah.
move to recommend the $7,500 for town halls,
I'm sorry, no, Article 17.
for the 15,000 for the
Okay.
software for the assessor's office.
So we have a motion.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Transfer to install town hall server replacement to see if the town will vote to transfer $7,500 from the operational stabilization fund to the town hall IT capital budget to fund replacement of the server in town hall, or take any other action relative thereto.
So again, the question I would have here is the maintenance on the hardware and the software that comes with the server. But that's typically 20% a year on hardware, so that'd be $1,400 a year for the server. I know that for a fact.
What if we don't maintain it?
Yeah,
That's what we budget.
You have to maintain it because you get you click in your firmware, you get a disk drive that fails, you are all done, and you might as well throw your $7,500 away.
Or you call them and say, inspect it, charge us to inspect it, then we'll put you back on.
You got it. Yeah, they do.
Oh,
And
they
they'll
do.
charge you $1,000. So
So
at
they do
the
it.
end of the day, you're in, and that's the point I'm getting at here is we got a reoccurring of 20% on top of that. And then I don't know what we got for a server room. Do we have the accommodations for this, or is there going to have to be more for
The
that?
server room, I don't think we have a server room.
Yeah,
The
the
server room is in the corner, not right here, but some corner of an office. It's only a small, you know what a small is.
Yeah, all right, that's how, I mean, do they have we do have an expense line item for.
For IT.
Okay, I gotta trust that, yeah, I gotta trust that he's done his job.
Can't find it in here.
It's not here?
I think there is an expense.
Yeah, there
There's a
is.
technology equipment, technology
Town hall.
services, which will be $5,500 next year, and you got a technology equipment of $4,500. So either one of those budgets should have the $1,400 to maintain. But we don't have the details, so we don't know, so we can't really cross-reference that stuff properly. And again, you know, some of the other things that I get a little spun up about is when I see expense accounts and new capital equipment and expense accounts don't go down, or maintenance accounts. So that's all I gotta trust is it's in here. I mean,
Right, so with those, so they do use those accounts for computer replacements. Just, I know historically they've been using them to replace computers. I think Donna got one, Vicky got one. I know Vicky's admin, I think, needs another one. Not saying computers are $5,000, but they have been utilized.
yeah, so that would be on the
Right.
equipment. The services is where your maintenance should come out of. That's where the maintenance, so I gotta hope it's there. I can trust that to do his job, so. I don't have any questions.
I'll entertain a motion.
I move,
Go ahead,
I
Fran.
move to recommend
I'll second.
$7,500.
I'll second.
Discussion?
It's gotta be HP.
All in
No, I think they had some good ones.
That'd be you.
Article 19, transfer to Norris School boiler repair. See if the town will vote to transfer $50,000 from the operational stabilization fund to the Norris School capital budget to fund repair of a boiler at the school. So this would be repair of the other boiler. We did one last year, and this is for the second.
It's only a repair.
And what do
I
they
remember
expect the
this.
life to be?
They expect it to be a lot longer, but it's like $250,000 to do a whole new boiler. As long as the sections are okay. The other one had bad sections, they had to replace the sections. So this one's still operating.
I make a motion to approve the transfer for $50,000 to repair the boiler.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
I guess a little bit of discussion I would have is the concern that I would have is they knew this was coming and we can't budget for it. And you know, again, I understand the emergency operating expense. We knew this was coming and we're painted into a corner because we've mismanaged our funds. So now we've got to use that when the reality is this 50 grand should have been in the override. Is where it should be sitting right now. Because we knew about it when we did the other one, and we were recommendation, but at that time was the other one was going too, if my memory serves me correct, yeah. So, again, I think these are the things that we've got to drill more responsibility into looking forward at our finances, and we don't do a good job as a town.
So you were thinking, put this as a line item on the regular school budget this year?
Or in the override. Could have been up on that override and put out there in the override.
But then what if the override fails, the school has no heat?
Yeah.
It's not viable.
We're into the operation, we're into the emergency, where's it coming from
Well,
now?
that is an emergency.
Then it would be if we had no money and no heat. But right now, I would think it was a foreseeable expense that we chose to kick down the road, and now we're into a corner where the only bucket in place we've got left is the emergency
Does
operating.
Norris have a capital?
I've never seen
Not a
it.
separate one.
I keep hearing reference to it, but I've never seen it.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's up
Hampshire
to date.
Regional
Hampshire
has,
Regional, yeah, they
has
have
a
one.
capital.
The last school
improvement
committee
Yeah.
meetings I've been
line.
at,
That would go.
Somewhere
the
it should have been.
principal
We knew it was
referenced
coming.
having one and putting one together in process, but I've not seen it.
Yeah, I've never heard of discussions about taking, them utilizing a capital line for their projects.
That's why capital improvement or capital equipment committee.
Yeah, and I think that's fine, but where is it coming out of here? Isn't it like an
This
emergency?
is operational,
Well, yeah.
organizational.
Operational,
It's not an emergency.
And
But
maybe,
it's,
I mean, I would
Just
take it
saving
out of
it.
capital.
There's
but there's
nothing
nothing left.
left.
So,
Yeah, and I think
We gotta
at
eat
last
it.
glance, there was 371,000 in operating stabilization. So with these three articles, it brings us down to 298.5 in operating stabilization, just as an FYI. When I think, what did you say the recommendation should be? Maybe
Anywhere between 5 and 10% of your annual operating budget.
so that would be 1.6 million, 800 to 1.6 million that we should have in
Then
there,
we have
about
200.
500 grand short, and we knew about this expense prior.
Just recently, yeah. I mean, we just replaced the boiler
Couple
last
months.
year.
It was back in the fall.
Yeah, last year, so we could have.
In the fall.
Yeah, I think it was in the fall.
I mean, there's nothing we can do now.
That's
Again, kind of one of those scenarios where we're in a corner, we gotta heat the kids and.
Yes, we did vote. Article 20.
Did we vote?
We did.
we did.
You did.
I voted yes.
See if the town will vote to allow the select board to enter into a 5-year contract for a postage meter lease for all municipal departments. I think this is a good idea, especially the intent is to reduce the cost of postage and what we pay.
Well, we have a meter lease now. We're just releasing a newer machine. And the postage account is separate. There's no money on this.
I move to recommend the town be able to enter into a 5-year contract.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Revolving funds, Article 21. See if the town will vote to amend Article XL1, I don't know what that number is, of the general bylaws pursuant to the provisions of Section 53E and a half of Chapter 44 of the MGLs, as most recently amended by inserting a new category to the revolving funds conservation, specifying the departmental receipts to be credited to each fund, the departmental purposes or programs for which each fund may be expended, and the entity authorized to expend each fund, with the new language noted in italics below. Revolving funds, they are hereby established in the town of Southampton pursuant to the provisions of GL Chapter 44, subsection 53E and a half, following revolving funds. I'm not going to read them all individually. Expenditures from each revolving fund set forth herein shall be subject to the limitation established annually by town meeting or any increase therein as may be authorized in accordance with General Law, Chapter 44, subsection 53E and a half, or take any action relative thereto.
So there's an assurance that they earn this much money in order to spend this much money.
Well, so,
Can we
I'm
discuss?
so we're only on Article
I
21,
know,
which is
okay.
just, so Article 21 is just the
I know
the layout
definition.
of the
Okay, gotcha.
funds and the addition of conservation.
I make a motion, we deny it because they're adding another fund to it.
Okay.
For a second?
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion. Yeah, so for discussion. In my mind, the 10,000 that they're looking to allocate would
But we're not
have...
talking about the dollar amounts. Right now, the reason why I made the motion is 21, they added a new fund. They
Well,
haven't.
then in my mind, any
Yeah.
new revolving fund
Right.
inherently takes revenue from the general fund. If there's a group that's taking in fees that previously go towards the general fund and no longer will go towards the general fund, that is a direct cut to our operating revenue.
And that was the exact reason that I made the motion for no, is because they've added a new one in
That's
there.
that 10,000, right?
But
Yeah.
just on this, it's adding a whole new category of
Right.
conservation.
Right.
We shouldn't be looking at the dollar amounts in this decision. It's really based on, why I brought it forward was based on a new category put in there, conservation. But yeah, we do know it's going to be 10 grand more.
But I guess why you don't ask the same question, I know these are already established, but, you know, why aren't we asking the same question of every one of these?
I'd love to, and we just got some of the data
The other
on
ones
that.
are self-sufficient now.
But we're not getting
I know,
money towards
but
it. and-
we're saying we're not
Yeah,
getting-
we're not getting the money towards it, and again, you know, we understand revolving funds, they can only hold a certain amount, but you just draw down
And they go
to.
back to the town after that certain amount, as I understand it.
Yeah,
But they're not
you-
limited to what they can expend. So if the board or committee determines that they take in 200, I mean, they can spend that 200, they just can't leave a balance at the end of the year
'Cause
over
they
and
go
above what
Well,
that...
this spending limit is here.
No, it's not spending limit, that's the balance limit.
That's the
So,
max
so
limit, yeah.
let's look at it this way, Francine. The finance, or the planning, Conservation Commission could take in $30,000 a year in fees, as long as they don't have more than $10,000 at a time in that fund. They can keep revolving and spending money out of it. They could cycle $100,000 a year through that, as long as they don't have over $10,000.
As long as they don't exceed.
The 10,000, and whenever it's over 10,000, that money goes back
So
to the
again,
town.
I think, you know, part of what some of the reports, DLS reports have said about the town is, you know, too many fragmented departments, not enough conglomeration, or what's the word I'm looking for?
Consolidation.
Yeah, or a centralized view, a holistic view of it, where the money's going.
Consolidation or oversight as, you know, over the town as a whole. So I feel that with the existence of these revolving funds, then that sort of feeds that mentality. This is my pot of money, this is my fund. If I take in 50,000 and I feel it's warranted, I'm going to spend
Right.
that entire 50,000. Versus if they were back to a budgetized line, they'd have to justify their expenses.
Let's look at this, Francine. Our budget as a finance committee is $200 a year. That's all we can spend. What the Conservation Commission isn't looking after the finance of the town. They're looking after the adherence of the wetlands, federal wetlands bylaw, protection act. But yet they need $10,000 to operate, and we don't, and when we could be getting financial classes to learn better how to advise this town on financials.
I think you're wrong. If you read the sentence, it's revolving fund spending limits for fiscal year 2019. They don't say in $10,000 blocks. They're saying the cap for the year is
That
$10,000.
they can spend?
The cap,
But
yes.
they can spend more money.
They can.
They have legal
But
issues, for
why does it
instance.
say this?
Okay.
But that's where the
says-
revolving part
That's
comes
where
in
they're
though.
going, yeah.
Yeah, revolving. They
That's
just
where the
can't.
revolving.
Spending limits for such
And see,
revolving
But your
funds.
example isn't good with the finance committee, because
We
the
don't
finance
take-
committee
We don't
is a
have
revenue
anything that says
based.
anything.
Yeah, we don't have any.
Understand, but when you can set the rule, what if we said we're gonna charge for everyone coming in here?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, what if we're gonna double our fees?
This is how much you get.
we
Really, John, doesn't.
we're
But
here
our guests
on
have to be
behalf
here.
of the taxpayers.
This is.
But this is our money.
No, I understand it, there's
It's
more.
very
what it is.
This is our
confusing.
money. It shouldn't cost them anything to do it. It's a volunteer
And this is
group.
what,
If you have more
historically,
control,
what
you
has
get more money.
happened
I
is
agree.
often these fees are then increased to justify additional expenditures, and it's a never-ending cycle.
Fees have doubled. I mean, and tripled. I mean, we've said that, but yet we're still getting no income back to the town on these doubling
So
and
the
tripling.
other
of
question
fees.
is, if they had a line item budget of $50,000 in there, because that's what they get in and spend, is that going to make any difference to the budget? If it's more than that.
Well, they'd
it should
show
go
us what
back.
they're spending on.
Right.
And we'd have more insight to where the 100, and even if everyone spends no more than this, what is that, 140 some odd thousand?
Yeah.
So you gotta figure there are some that are spending over that, so, yeah, we
They
don't
don't
have,
have to show.
no, we don't get, I don't think we get the details on what, oh, do we get, we
Yeah,
asked for
it
that,
comes
we
out
asked for that the other day.
Sure.
In the
We just asked for that, you just
As a
got an
matter
email
of
on it.
regular business, we don't see it.
Right.
We see
have
them
to.
in here.
Yeah, revolving fund.
This is revenue, where's the
That's pretty
expense?
autonomous.
So I think the issue with this one, Dan,
It's conservation.
is the conservation.
I'm not fighting a religious battle, the town voted to have them in there. I mean, I know what you gotta do, you gotta get that whole.
This isn't the conservation agent. This is conservation.
Just to say
But
cost.
they've never had a revolving fund.
It's
Right.
remarkably
No,
the
I
same
don't
amount
want
of
you
money
to
as
think-
they needed to pay the
They're
agents.
part of the
This is
regular
first.
reports.
Coincidence?
This is for legal and other expenses that they have to
Yeah,
have.
but it's not detailed to where they spent their money.
No, but.
But
we
that's
get a
what I'm
report.
saying, but they're not detailed, so you don't know if they're spending it on a consultant because they're coming in and giving them how to prepare better.
Yes,
You
we
just
have
don't know where they're spending.
nothing to see about their budgets.
Correct.
No.
But there's 150,000 in there, and we're nickel and diming people over $1,000 in overtime, but we don't have insight into that. And alls I'm saying here, with us voting no, is we're saying we don't want another one added
The
in
good-
here.
Mike, the good thing with a young baby is he'll be sleeping when you get home. He'll wake up later. You can get to talk to him.
So that's my point, is why do we need another fund right now when we're looking for money, and this doesn't put any of those conservation fees, which are thousands of dollars a clip if you get into some of these wetlands stuff.
So we have a motion to not recommend Article 21. And we have a second to not recommend Article 21. If it is voted to not recommend, we will need to provide some justification, because if this doesn't go forward, or I'm sorry, if this goes forward,
You're just gonna have to say at town meeting why you're not recommending.
Yeah,
it.
not
I wanna
recommending
make
the
sure
addition
that-
of another
So-
account.
Right, we do not need another revolving fund.
Yeah, well, the addition of a revolving fund is the reason why.
Right.
okay, as long as we outline it, I don't want to say no and then everyone vote no and then the funds are removed from the
So-
balance, right? All the remaining,
Yeah,
right? So
it's-
we just have to clarify.
I don't even
If it
think by
doesn't-
law we can say no to the ones that are there. They can be there.
Abolish them if we wanted to and go back to line items, but,
Well, then they need a budget bill.
right, so it
Right.
depends what you wanna do, yeah.
But
All right.
visibility.
Is,
So that was the motion, was because of the Conservation
Right.
Commission.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there other discussion?
Okay, I have some information that was given at that last select board meeting on the Conservation Commission.
And what is this information? You got a,
It doesn't say anything but
oh, I'm very familiar.
revolving fund. It's just, all it is just some background about what it is that they do,
Oh, I know what they do.
so.
And in my opinion, they've done a phenomenal job.
They have, where they were at. I think we've got great wetlands in
Yeah,
town, great
I know about
protection.
Wetlands
and-
Protection Act.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor to not recommend?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
All right. Article 21, see if the town will vote to set the revolving fund FY 2019 spending limits for such revolving funds or as follows, or take any other action relative thereto. So with this, if we're looking to go the same route, I think we need to
Can I
be
make a
really...
motion?
I'm sorry?
Can I make a specific motion?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if we're looking to follow the same logic, we should make something specific because it does affect, straight out no, affects the other one.
So we can go either way. We can do a vote yes with an exclusion, or we can do a vote no because of. What do you see as a chair would be the recommendation?
22.
So report
Oh.
committee presentation? Are we back to?
Well, because on the same subject, I have an issue with these.
Well, that's why I'm asking which
This one's
direction.
not-
to
So I
follow
think-
the motion.
Yeah,
we're
that
still
I
was
think
not there.
the
Well, because this is the second part to
Individual dollar
it.
amounts?
Right.
Gotcha, okay, I don't have it.
yes with the, I don't know how that works. If you change the article, you need to provide 3 copies, so I'm trying to find the easiest way. If it gets voted down to make the modification.
Because I'm not looking at Jack with what was there.
So I would say voting no, because if you had to provide 3 copies of the article with, let's say, 1 line removed, you take 3 copies of this, and you cross the line out. There's your 3 copies in writing.
So now
So you
here's
don't
the
have to
downside.
physically write it all
If we
out.
get everyone to vote no in the town, these aren't funded, right?
Right.
So are
They
we
won't
better?
vote no.
Yeah, so are we better off by actually amending this and having something ready to amend and hand in there? Because there's a good chance people aren't gonna vote to say, no, I'm funding the Council of Aging or the dog
Of
licenses.
course they won't.
And they've been there for years, when our
Exactly.
biggest beef is just the increase in the
addition,
zoning
yeah,
board
the increase.
and the increase in the Conservation Commission, because at the end of the day, those are taking, as Heather articulated, from our general funds.
Just make a motion that the one you want to do is going to replace the one on the
Right.
warrant. So you cross out the line saying, I want to replace it with this one, give them 3 copies.
Right, so if you were to, I would say
Then we'll
voting no, and you'd have to, if it gets voted down,
So our recommendation.
well, there's 2
would
different
be-
ways. You can propose an alternate motion, you can strike it, propose an alternate, or you can have it voted down and then,
Yeah, you
actually, no, you
create something.
you have to recreate it, so you'd
That's
want
what the
to,
alternate motion would be.
right, so you'd have to propose the alternate motion.
So let's talk about here as a group right now, and then
Mm-hmm.
talk about how should I make the motion right now to approve minus the 2 increases or discrepancies from last year, or no on the whole thing?
So you would speak to the article, you'd make a motion to strike, you gotta go back to the language we used a year ago. I don't have it specifically like memorized, but you'd have to follow the same format of striking the motion.
But as a board, we can't put one forward and say, this is our recommendation.
No, I think we recommend it in its entirety or not, but the town
Okay.
decides whether or not they're going to follow.
Well, then I
the
make a motion that
recommendation.
we don't recommend this due
Right, John?
to increases of the conservation, increase in net new conservation revolving fund, and an increase on the ZBA of $2,000.
It's $2,000 higher,
$2,000
right.
increase from last year.
Okay.
So you're going to have to put that, somebody second it.
I'll second that
motion and a
motion.
second.
Yeah.
So you're going to present that as an alternate motion, is that it?
I'll do it, yeah.
Yeah, because that's what you have to
Yeah,
do.
I'll do it up there.
So instead of asking them to vote it down, you ask that to be put in place of it,
Right.
and they'll vote it be
But
that.
I'm still sticking to making a recommendation as a committee of a no because of the increase.
And that would back up by what you do on
And
the
then,
warrant.
You can recommend no and then propose.
yes, and then that's what
Strike and
I
then
will
vote.
do the meeting is go up there with a new minus those two out
Yeah,
and
'cause
speak to that.
If you just say no, you don't have a replacement, it doesn't make sense.
Correct, correct.
So that makes,
And absolutely, I'll do that.
Okay.
Go up there in it. But that's the reason why, again, it's really a $13,000, or actually $12,000 passionate hit that I was on.
So we have a motion to not recommend Article 22.
Correct.
Is there a second?
Second.
so we're in discussion, made me think of something, I don't know if I'm thinking through it straight, but, so if you don't give them the $10,000, do you have to go back into the budget and put $10,000 in the budget?
If they want, they didn't have a budget, what was their
They didn't
budget
have
last
a budget
year?
at all.
What was their budget last year? They didn't have a budget last
They
year.
didn't
They've
have-
never had a budget.
Yeah.
That's where I got the
That takes
biggest
care of that,
beef.
yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So the fees were just coming into
General.
fees and permits or whatever that line is.
You have no budget.
Yeah, now they want to keep those.
So we have a motion and a second. Other discussion? All in favor to not recommend?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
The last three articles aren't gonna make or break me, there's nothing in there controversial, so I'm gonna go run and have supper.
Thanks for joining
Have a
us.
bite.
That was a
for you, John.
spirited meeting.
Yes, it was. Thank
Let's
you.
count on that.
And it's
That's
not
not a
over.
bad thing. What?
Why, we got more in here?
There's a couple more.
No, far from over fencing.
Tomorrow night is another meeting.
Article 23,
In Miami.
report of the Community Preservation Committee. This is their general report.
We have no real jurisdiction over that, do we?
The report itself, there's really nothing we don't really weigh in on. We do weigh in on the appropriations following, so Article 24, funding for Historical Commission for preservation and cleaning of Civil War Revolutionary War graves. So this is to fund the cleaning of those grave sites through community preservation funds. Is there a motion?
I will motion we accept it.
Is there a second?
I know,
Second.
I know it shocks some people, but at the end of the day, I'd rather honor our soldiers than potentially put a tin roof on a barn.
We have a motion and a second. Is there other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, Article 25, funding for Park Commission for Labrie Field improvements, phases 2 to 4.
Would that be this week?
Yeah.
Yes, to see if the town will vote to transfer up to $675,000 from community preservation funds to the Park Commission for phases 2 through 4. For the Labrie Field improvements, said sum to be transferred from community preservation surcharges, undesignated account, or take any other action relative thereto. Discussion.
Do we want to discuss under a motion, or do we just want to discuss?
Well, how much money is actually sitting in
Community
the community?
preservation?
Yeah.
There's
Like 900,000, something close to
something
that.
like that.
So this,
Pretty much wipes it
I
out.
was about to say.
No, they
this
can't
is
use it all
like
for this.
depleted.
They can't use it all for this. There were actually, if you look at the supplement that we got last week, they actually don't know where all the money's coming from. It's not spelled out in here.
I
Motion
think we
takes it
need,
from community preservation.
Oh, the
fund.
6, I didn't think they could spend it all on that one thing.
But here's the issue. They have already approved this project. And I think they encumbered the funds.
Right, but
now they're going to spend them. I think that's how it went.
but
I'm not
So
saying
this is a-
I'm not saying I agree with
Well,
it.
it
I'm
has to
just
be
saying
approved by
that's what's
town
happened.
meeting. That's
Yes.
fine that the committee itself
Right, but-
approved it, but that's not final approval. That's
So
now
they're-
But that's what I'm saying.
This shows 787,000 on the detail we got.
when, I mean, when do they
And you're
plan
right.
on bringing in
787.
appraisals and stuff? We can't just go buy this one thing, right?
This is, so the engineer, the architect put together the cost estimate.
That's it.
So
Yeah,
they
I
haven't
have
gone
mine,
out-
but.
they haven't gone out
nothing's
to
gone
bid
out to
yet,
bid
no.
yet?
But
Okay.
it said up to 675,000, but I guess if you put 675,000 in, that's
I don't
maybe.
think-
I'm really torn on this one, I gotta be honest, because
I don't think
having
we
kids
should.
in the school and in the sports, I think, gee, that would be wonderful. But then I look at our ridiculous financial situation and think, how do we even contemplate spending $675,000 on a
But they could never
volunteer?
spend it, they could never add it to our general fund to offset.
But
any
what
of the
about some of these right of first refusal
Yeah.
chapter properties
Yeah.
that we're gonna be?
So we're gonna drain the fund here to buy this
We're
instead
talking
of
about
buying
buying
the
Glendale
property.
Road, and then we're
Yes.
making the
Yeah.
balance go to about 200,000
Yeah.
after this transfer.
So
So that makes
I
that,
don't think we should approve this till we get bids coming in and we know what's gonna be spent, because if
Or we
we
get
tell
healthy.
them, yeah, if we tell them, yes, okay, go ahead and spend it, they're gonna spend it.
but don't forget, Sharon, the voters of town floor are gonna vote for it anyway.
I
So how much do we need to beat this horse?
I know.
Well, so then I make a recommendation, we vote no. I'll be the bad boy and throw it out there and see if anyone wants to second me or let me hang here by myself.
So we have
You're gonna get hung at town meeting because it's,
Yeah, I understand, and I have a son who's a captain of all the teams. I have a daughter who plays all sports. I understand it, but we can't justify it and then second breath go to look and buy the property over here in front of Cumberland Farms and the property up here and this. You can't.
I hear you.
You can't.
Yeah, my concern is, I do believe that they already accepted this project years ago, long before.
So it's a multi-year, multi-phase
I
plan,
think
so
it
they
is.
paid for the engineering and
I
design for the
think,
portion.
I
Right.
think they already did, that's all I'm saying. So,
I know.
and I feel like you do, I think we should have some money there in the piggy bank.
What
We
if we
don't
get-
know 8 years ago when they approved this, that we were gonna have other needs going
Right.
forward. So from today forward, we should be looking
Right.
forward.
I mean, there's talk of
But-
renovating the old town hall for the police. Perhaps some of those CPC funds could be used to do those renovations.
I don't disagree, but
It could be, so in,
Committee.
I would say in defense of this project, the groups have done all the hard work to get here for this project.
Yep.
They've put the time and the effort in. The suggestions are made and have been made by this board to the select board and other groups that look at putting funds in these other buildings. There has been no movement on that, but I personally look at them different because this group has done the work, they have put in the effort, they have the plan, they have the process of how they want to get it done. Now, whether or not it's the best place at this moment for the funds to go, that's the question, but it's the only place ready, it's the only place that's worked year over year over year for this.
What do we lose by kicking this down in New York?
I'm all about saving for the
So
future.
what do we lose? I mean, are we contractually bound to do this? Is
You
the
lose-
cost of material gonna go up so dramatically next year?
I
So
think
my
that's what
understanding is the
happened.
engineering cost for where we are today was $60,000 total?
And they don't go back? Mike, they don't go back. Your engineering drawings don't go back for
No,
over 1 year.
no, I mean, you'd have to pay, you'd pay for them to re-estimate at a future date.
Here's my concern. We deplete the fund.
Did you second me?
I'm sorry.
Did you second me on the no? I don't know if we ever got to a
I don't
second.
know
Did we
if we
get
get
to a
there.
second on that, or was that left out here?
I think
don't
you
know.
were
I'm
left
left out, that's
You're
fine.
left out on your own
All right,
right
that's
now.
fine. I just wanted to know if I had a wingman yet.
Not yet.
All right.
I'll second for discussion.
All right.
My concern is we essentially deplete that fund. I have a strong feeling there's going to be an appetite for reducing the CPC contributions going forward. I will say that I plan on putting a citizen's petition, if that's the only way to get there, come next town meeting, because I really feel that, we keep burdening people with increasing the taxes, and again, looking to
Well,
find
put more money
places.
in the general, leave more money in the general. fund.
Exactly.
Correct.
Theoretically, because
Just put it
this
in
would
a
have to
different bucket.
approve that
Yeah.
increase as well, so it's
Yeah.
not a slam dunk by any means, but I feel if that then gets dropped down to 1.5% even, 2, there's not gonna be anything left to do some of these other
Anything
preservation
meaningful.
projects that, but like I said, I am torn, I am, I think
The other thing that
it should be great for the kids in town.
rubs me is I heard that we were actually offered a free sprinkler system when they were building this field, and we turned it down. Now we're spending how many thousands on it?
It's hearsay.
Originally, and this comes back to like I think this was really estimated to be somewhere, when they did the original plan, $350,000. And since that time, if you wait 8 years, everything went up to
So,
double almost.
and my son played on the field from the first day to now, and it was just fine. We did great without the $14,000 or $12,000 in wood timbers, We did just fine in the Porta-John, and we did just fine bringing our own water. I mean, yeah. And I'm the one with 4 children that are gonna use this, and I just don't, I have to agree with Heather. I just don't think at this point we should bring it forward. If we wanna bring it forward next year.
I'm ultra
then-
conservative that way
Right.
as far as saving for the rainy day and not, I mean, the way this town operates is so against my mindset of how finances should go. And this is a prime example.
I mean, do we, look at the snack shack. It's $250,000 snack shack.
It's mind-boggling.
At the meeting, they talked about the fact that if we have better, we're losing money. If we had better facilities, they could rent this out. And these are the things that they need.
And then we'll go to a revolving fund and we
That
never
was
see
the
it.
explanation.
And then it'll go into a revolving fund, it'll be the
That was the
revolving fund.
explanation, is that certain games can't be played there because of the condition of the fields and the lack of amenities that places need. I'm not saying I'm for it or against, I'm just
Understood.
explaining the...
Great revenue
what
plan,
was-
so let's
what
show us
was-
the
But again, the
revenue.
revenue then goes to the park commission,
Well,
which is a revolving fund. That never-
Is it a revolving
It
fund, the
is
park
revolving.
commission?
That's where we saw some of
Yes.
those wages being.
You're right.
Remember? Yeah.
But they didn't ask for an increase, which is good.
it is.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there more discussion?
And so all this money was coming out of the preservation that you were allowed to, I thought you couldn't take all of that, I thought there was only a certain amount per year you could take out of each bucket.
Not that I'm aware of. I mean,
It
Virginia
has been
Amherst was talking
articulated that
about
way.
that.
Virginia did articulate that. I don't know.
Because
yeah.
we were all pushing, well, when the chapter land was up, why can't you just take the million out of that? And she
I
was
don't know
saying.
if there was a
that-
million total, I don't know if that was in there.
You-
In that specific fund for that, I don't think that
Oh, so
amount was in there.
there's different buckets that
Right.
get funded and
So
drawn
there's open
upon?
space, there's an open space account, there's
Okay.
historic resource, community housing, and open space.
And so which one is this coming out of?
This is
Open space?
community preservation surcharges undesignated account. So this,
Because is that the same bucket that would be our chance to buy the land up on Glendale Road? And would that be depleted?
I
think. if-
I
don't know the balances offhand.
And then they
You are the
get a
liaison. You
percentage,
can
they
participate in
get
those.
revenue from
Just
the
to-
town, set aside from the tax revenue every year.
Right.
Plus they get money, a
Right.
certain percentage from the state that matches it. So they probably make about 200,000.
I was waiting for that day.
Can I ask a quick question for park commissions, operating expenses? Where does that money go to?
Revolving fund.
Right, but what are the expenses?
I don't.
I think we got an email on that the other day with the details, 3 years of details.
So community
those,
preservation has, looks like 1.5 million in it right now.
Did I get that back?
Yeah, so if you go through that, Sharon, what was sent out by Vicky via Mike is...
Was that one in there?
Yeah, it's-
The one with the 3 different,
All should have been there, right? You asked for all.
Should have
of
been
them.
all the revolving,
Yeah, all
there was a
of them.
bunch in there. They're all together by year. They're just one after another after another. I tried to make one.
So does it give you the bucket breakdowns in there or no?
No.
You sure?
This
Not
goes
what I'm looking
back
at,
here. Here's what we had CPA, but this is, this is a couple of months old, this report.
But they haven't done transfer yet, so.
But it looked like they had $896,000 in undesignated, $93,000 in open space, $32,000 in historical preservation, $308,000 in community housing, and $10,000 in expenses for the committee. So,
So they undesignated, they could probably funnel into one of the buckets.
so that's, I believe that's where it's going.
So we have a motion and a second.
Yeah,
Is there more discussion? All in favor of not recommending?
Aye.
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 I made the motion, so we all know where I stand.
Article 26, not within our purview. Article 27 is, I guess, technically in our purview because they're to see if the town will vote to authorize the select board to acquire by gift, purchase, eminent domain, or otherwise an easement interest for the purposes of the construction, operation, and maintenance of a pumping station and related facilities and appurtenances in East Hampton. This is for the water pumping station to help with the alternate feed.
But how much is it?
Well, you don't know until you reach out to the owners. We need to authorize the town to reach out to the
But
owners.
at the end of the day,
So all this is authorizing them to go ahead and get the information?
Seek an easement.
Okay.
Correct. And then,
No, but it said to authorize to acquire by gift, purchase, eminent domain, or otherwise. I mean, this is authorizing to buy.
so I didn't finish my sentence. So the article is to authorize them to seek the easement and to purchase it. This article was the same one from the special town meeting, and when we discussed it, and we asked the select board and I think the water commission where the funds were coming from, the funds would be coming from the water enterprise capital, like their long-term plan. So this won't be purchased
Okay.
using town funds, it's purchased using the water
and that's
enterprise.
what I was about to say, is it won't come out of our money, but then
Then that's fine.
I remembered it
That's
was
fine.
your money, Francine, so that's why I bit my
Okay.
lip and let you go.
But,
fine.
so the town still has to pursue it because the town is the legal
Right.
holder of the property.
Okay, but it's not town money.
So at this table, just, who's got town water? Just.
I do.
Article?
Anyone
I
anyone
guess
else
it's
have town
related.
water?
No.
Do you?
I had town water.
Yeah, so too? Cool. Just for curiosity.
Okay, I move that we recommend.
Is there a second? Second. Other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. That's
Is that
it.
it?
All right, next meeting. I say we go May 1st before this annual town meeting.
And you'll communicate, obviously, our recommendations, yeah.
Yes.
For the last time,
For the last.
for the last time, huh?
Oh, we made it colorful for you, didn't we? Am I the first person you had to pull out of the room?
No, we didn't.
I've been here, yes.
So,
I pulled myself out of the
Next-
room once.
I think, yeah,
And you followed me.
actually, yeah. next
All
May
right,
1st.
so-
You talked me off the cliff.
You're batting 1,000 at Pellegrin.
So, next meeting, May 1st at 6 o'clock, an hour before the town meeting. Hopefully, there's no snowstorms. Thank you, people.
I hear.
Yeah.
Stupid.
All right,
That should work out well.
Okay. I
I'll make-
make a motion that we adjourn?
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
I tell you, when my kids used to race BMX,